I'd like to call the Finance, Ways and Means Committee to order for February the 24th, 2026. Members, if you would, please sign in to take the roll.
Chairman, I take something out here.
You already signed in.
I don't already signed in?
Yeah.
Okay, all right. I'm in the wish.
There we go. Thank you, Madam Clerk. Members, please record your attendance. Does anyone need more time? Madam Clerk, take the roll.
Mr. Chairman, you have 20 members present. You have a quorum.
All right, thank you. Members, any personal orders or announcements this morning? Hearing none and seeing none. Today we have 5 budget hearings beginning with the Department of Environment and Conservation. So if they would make their way, they are here and ready. Good deal. That's what we like to see. Members, just a reminder that the presentations are on the dashboard, and to our presenters, we will control the microphones up here. So once you see your red light come on, you'll be ready to present. So without further ado, without objection, we're going to go out of session. We are out of session. Welcome. You all may begin.
Good morning, Chairman Hicks and committee. My name is Karen Simo, and I am the Deputy Commissioner and Chief Operating Officer for TDEC, the Tennessee Department of Environment and Conservation. We appreciate you excusing Commissioner Salyers from this presentation, Chairman, while he is out of town on official business. He sends his best wishes to all of you on this committee. Let me proceed. Thank you, Representative Faison, Chairman Faison. All right. TDEC is a service-driven agency that is a resource for Tennessee communities and the public. We are not just a regulator. We are lean, effective, and focused not only on the challenges of today, but the opportunities of tomorrow. This is in large part to your direction, guidance, investment, and growing trust in our agency. The investments you've made in Tennessee state parks are fueling outdoor recreation, tourism, and local economic growth across the state. Your investments in water and wastewater infrastructure are helping communities reinvest in themselves to modernize, expand capacity, and meet the demands of a growing population in Tennessee. Your investments in cleanup programs are revitalizing long abandoned and formerly contaminated sites so that they can return to economic opportunity for communities. On behalf of Commissioner Salyers and the entire TDEC team, we want to thank you for your partnership and investments. These investments are for Tennessee's economy and our citizens' quality of life. I now turn it over to Deputy Commissioner Brian Clifford to talk about the proposed investments for Tennessee State Parks. Brian.
Thank you, Karen. Chairman, Vice Chair, members, it's good to see you all. Thanks for having us today. Tennessee State Parks are truly investment worthy, and what you all are doing and have done for the past several years will affect generations to come, and we're very thankful for that. Your leadership and commitment is truly expanding outdoors for all Tennesseans. The state now boasts 68 state parks as funded by you all. 62 of those are already open now. We're working to open more this year. Also, we are proposing 2 new state parks, one on the Hamilton and Ray County line, and then another on the Buffalo River and the Perry and Wayne County areas. The positions will be self-funded by park revenues, and we are requesting 9 new staff at the Buffalo River State Park and 11 at the state park in the Hamilton and Ray County areas. Happy to provide any details about these new parks if you have any questions. Now I'll turn it over to Deputy Commissioner Atkins from our Bureau of Environment.
Thank you, Brian. Good morning. Tennessee continues to grow at one of the fastest rates in the nation. And that kind of growth requires strong infrastructure at every level, including where public sewer is not available. In those areas, our subsurface septic disposal system program is the backbone of new home construction, economic development, and public health protection. Demand for our services has grown dramatically SSDS permits have increased, our inspections have increased, and our team evaluated and approved nearly 4,000 new subdivision lots this year alone. As shown on the map, since January of 2025, SSDS staff have issued more than 15,000 new permits and nearly 11,000 certifications of completion, all while managing hundreds of complaint investigations, inspections, and plan reviews. So our team is keeping pace with Tennessee's record growth, but the workload is straining our current capacity. To sustain these service levels and continue to improve responsiveness, we're requesting 14 new self-funded positions paid for entirely by the Environmental Protection Fund, not the general fund. And these positions will allow us to reduce permit turnaround times, improve coverage across growing counties, and provide faster, more reliable service to Tennessee homeowners, developers, and builders who are driving this state's economic expansion. Thank you, and I'll turn it back to Deputy Commissioner Simon.
Thank you, Ronnie. We are now open to any questions the committee may have.
All right, thank you very much. Thank you all for your presentation. We do have some folks on the list for questioning, and we will begin with Chairman Williams. Chairman Williams, you're recognized.
Thank you for being here today. I just had some questions. In the fall, we had a hearing regarding ARPA funds.
Yes.
And that $1.35 billion that we were investing in local communities across the state for infrastructure, water, wastewater projects. When we had that discussion back then, there was some questions of whether or not we were going to be able to deploy and utilize those revenues fast enough. But a part of that over $1 billion, $150 million of that was set aside for TDEC to do for strategic projects of their own. Could you give me an update on those projects, what those projects are, what their progress is, when you expect them to be done?
Yes, sir. That $150 million, I believe, I don't remember, I don't have the numbers in front of me, but that was not actually for TDEC personally to deliver those. About $40 million of that was allocated to Tennessee State Parks to carry out water and wastewater infrastructure projects. So those are in progress. Those are being carried out through STREAM. Then there was, I think, 18 million, I believe, allocated to TDOT to carry out some stormwater management projects that were not otherwise eligible for FHWA money or other TDOT funding. And then there was some regional projects that were being carried out across the state that were of state strategic interest, including surrounding the West Tennessee, Blue Oval City communities. I didn't know what it was properly called at this moment. I apologize. For the West Tennessee investment, Middle Tennessee, there was investments surrounding Grundy County as a distressed county, as well as the Duck River utility area. In East Tennessee, it was investments in Irwin. So that money was split up among all of those. So, and those are all underway, and I'm happy to provide more information in a later meeting. I don't have all the details right at hand.
Okay. Of the $1.35 billion that we were spent, it looks as if you've only spent about half or a little less than half of that money so far. I know that in most cases, this is a reimbursement of funds for our local governments. When we convened in the fall, the question was, do you think you're going to have to intervene? That's the same question today. Have you begun to intervene? A wastewater project or a water treatment plant project is going to take 18 months to build generally. And so have you began to intervene? Do you have a process for intervention? Are you concerned at all about that other $800 million has not been deployed, maybe committed, but not been deployed yet?
Yes, sir. We have been intervening. So we work directly with the grantees on, is their project timeline capable to be accomplished within the ARP? So since probably last fall, we've gone from 140 construction projects to 115 construction projects. So those communities might still implement planning and design or something else that's essential to their success, but it's not going to be construction at this time with these funds. In terms of the remaining money, our out the door time has increased dramatically in terms of how quickly communities are requesting reimbursement. So as of from January to February, our time to spend $50 million increased exponentially. So now we're getting that money out twice as fast based on the reimbursement. So the exponential growth is happening as we expected on the reimbursement side.
So those 20 projects that they've been notified that they're not going to get the money, they're not going to be able to complete on time. Do you reallocate those dollars, or are you setting those dollars aside that were committed for those projects, knowing that we're going to send that money back to the federal government?
No, sir. We reallocate it to keep it within Tennessee. So our first question for communities is many grantees have multiple projects. So are all their other projects on budget and on time? So do they need to move some money around between projects to keep it in that community? That's always our first preference. If that is not something that they can carry out in the timeline, then we have a small amount of funds that are in the process of being returned, and then we are in the process of reallocating that to other communities that have existing ARP projects. Currently we've only actually had about $1.9 million returned. None of this has been a forceful return. It has all been in collaboration with the grantees.
Mm-hmm.
And of that 1.9, we then had 3 small communities that had overruns that we were able to, those overruns was the difference between could they complete their ARP project or not. Because our goal is to have every project complete so the community can be fully reimbursed and we do not return any money to the federal government.
So those revenues from those projects that were abandoned or notified that they couldn't get done, so those monies are being spent on upgrades or cost overruns or change orders, which came in lot after that original award. And so that's how you're able to spend that money?
Yes, sir. So
Okay.
we're moving them from one existing ARP project to another existing ARP project.
Okay. Are there any plans for that to grow that $150 million number that were strategic projects of your own with these abandoned dollars from local government?
That is not our goal, no, sir.
Okay.
We're really trying to keep the money at the community level.
Okay. When is based upon you notifying people whether or not they're going to get done, what is the date where you say if you are not 100% certain that you can get done, where is that date where you're able to notify folks? Is it April 1st? Was it February 1st? When is the date where you're telling folks that this is paramount or we're taking your money? Have we set a date with these
That
folks?
date has passed.
Okay.
So that is what we are actively engaged in right now.
Uh-huh.
What we are conveying to them in terms of setting expectations is that if you're doing construction, your timeline for construction needs to be complete by end of July. So that gives you enough time to do all your final paperwork as the grantee, and then their grant contracts expire September 30th, and then that gives the state 90 days to complete reimbursement. So that is actively where we are at with communities now, is are you going to be done by July?
Okay. Just a quick final question. If you're the city of Baxter, I'm just using Baxter because it's my district. You're the city of Baxter and you have a water project and you're already engaged and you're doing it. Is there an opportunity where they could say, wait, there's this other 1,700 foot of 8-inch ductile that I can install over here? Can they add to their current project in order to help consume those dollars that have been abandoned, or no?
We're happy to take that as an intake, but we currently have $70 million in request and not that amount of money funded.
Okay.
So we're happy to document it in the event something unexpected happens, but I will make no promises that we will fund your additional thing. But we really need to keep it within the scope of the ARP project because that's what we've reported to the federal treasury. So
Okay.
there is some parameters around how much we can expand scopes.
Okay, thank you so much.
Thank you, Chairman. Next on the list, Leader Lamberth. You're recognized.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. And we wouldn't have TDEC before me and my friend Brian Clifford in his new role as Deputy Commissioner before me if I didn't want to brag about, state parks for a second here and ask a couple of questions. So if y'all don't know, our family goes to a lot of state parks, okay? If we do. So, and we were in a state park just a couple of weekends ago on Valentine's Day. My little girl had an ACT to take, and I looked for a state park so we could bring her RV down and be near where the ACT testing center was. By the way, Edgar Evans was very nice again, so thank you. But look, if you haven't been to one of our state parks, go. They belong to you. They belong to the people of this state. You paid for them. And we've spent almost $500 million in upgrades on infrastructure. And I can tell you, having gone to a bunch of them, and we've been to over half, though y'all make it harder because you want to get to 70 and you keep expanding them. So we need to get out to some of the newer ones. It has made a massive difference, okay? Like that, you can see it in the facilities. You can see it. The restrooms no longer look like they were built in the 1970s because, many of them had. So on that, I want to brag on y'all because you're doing a really, really good job. But I do have some very specific questions that deal with some of the recurring revenue that's out there and how we've spent that. So in the proposed 27 budget, there's an increase of 2.7 million recurring dollars for 29 positions in state parks, 23 to enhance state parks and recreation areas, and 6 to operate and administer 3 new visitor centers. These are being funded, from my understanding, through existing park revenues. So how are park revenues projected to be able to cover those ongoing costs of these new positions? Because we've not really done that, I think, in the past.
Thank you, Leader Lambert, for the question. And you're right, we have 29 positions in the budget. Most of those are self-funded. We have some recurring addition there. In reality, I think the projected decrease in our recurring budget is more like $10 million. So with the 14 new parks we're building, we're trying to do our part, be fiscally responsible, and use our revenues that we're able to generate through our hospitality functions and other places in Tennessee state parks to help cover some of those state appropriations. And that's our effort this year based on what we're seeing in our revenues to try to do that. We won't always be able to do it, but we think we can do it this year.
Okay. So what type of revenues are coming in to be able to cover those? So all of our parks are free to enter. They always have been. And as long as we're here, I hope that they always will be. I'd hate to see an entrance fee for a park that the people of Tennessee have already paid for them. But what type of revenues come in to be able to pay for these positions?
We certainly don't intend to implement any fees for entry because of the approach this General Assembly has taken with its investment in Tennessee State Parks. So I hope that's not on anyone's radar, but a lot of the revenues that we're able to generate are through some of our hospitality functions, such as our lodges, cabins, campgrounds, gift shops. And we're doing a really good job there. In December, for instance, revenues are up about 9% year over year for our closeout in December. So as we recognize those revenues, we're encouraging our teams to continue doing a great job there. And it's on us to help ensure we're using state dollars appropriately. And that's why we're recognizing some of our revenues to help do that.
Okay. And what safeguards or contingency plans are in place if for some reason that some of those revenues do fall short? Because these are recurring positions. These are folks we're hiring. What safeguards are in place?
We feel pretty confident with this year. I think next year's budget request, we would do an analysis based on our projected revenues, and then we have some carry forward funds as well. So we think that with considering our carry forwards, we're probably in a good place to go ahead and move forward with this budget. Next budget cycle, we'll do a whole nother analysis and make sure that we're not doing this automatically going forward, that we actually take the time to understand what our revenues are before we submit our budget to you all.
And kind of wrapping up my line of questioning here, Mr. Chairman, but we've added about 74 positions, which a lot of the parks, and for folks that don't know this, when we say we've added parks, there's not like a ton of land out there that the state of Tennessee and the people therein can purchase. That most of these parks have been natural areas. They've been, underutilized state property that belongs to the people already. And we've added buildings and staff. And so, because if you have an unstaffed area and folks are hiking out through there and they get hurt or, in a bad position, a lot of times that's been falling on the counties, that's been falling on local folks to try to go in and rescue those people. And they're doing the best job they can, but Parks is best equipped to do that. So we've added 74 positions kind of for those reasons. I mean, to make sure those parks are well staffed, but our park revenues have not been utilized for those 74. It's been through the general budgeting process. Why why did you not utilize, and it came before your time, but for anybody that sits here on the panel, why did we not utilize park revenue in prior positions?
I think our financial situation was different then too. We're in a place now where our revenues are great and we need to recognize them. But if you actually look at the past 7, 8 years of Tennessee State Parks, we're actually down 20 positions as a whole because we've let go of some vacant positions and some other things. So while we have added some positions over time, in reality, overall, we're down about 20 positions.
All right. Thank you. Good luck in your new role. I know I reached
Thanks,
out to you right after we visited Ed Grevens, and for every member and quite frankly, every citizen in the state of Tennessee, if you see something in a state park, I mean, reach out to Deputy Commissioner Clifford, reach out to his staff. If you see something they can improve in, I'm not kidding. Like, let them know and they'll get all over it. Am I right?
You are. You have my cell phone, but please don't share that with everyone.
Oh, it's going
These
online,
members can
but-
have it, but don't
All right,
post it.
thanks, Brian.
All right, thank you. Next on the list, Representative Gann, you're recognized, sir.
Thank you, Chairman. Good morning. Good to see y'all here. In fiscal year 23, TDEC received a total of 13.4 million, 4 million recurring, and 37 positions to establish the necessary infrastructure and environmental readiness to begin construction at the mega site. Can you provide us an update of the mega site's environmental readiness and infrastructure as of early 26? What work has been completed? What work remains to be done? And has any plans changed since the change in the plans for Ford to go to combustible engines being built there?
Thank you, Representative Gantt. To answer your question regarding Blue Oval City, the mega site authority is in operation at this point. The wastewater treatment facility has been built, and obviously Ford's made some recent announcements regarding their ongoing operations. The facilities, as far as infrastructure, is in place. It has been built. There are some ongoing permitting things that TDEC is working through with the mega site authority, as well as the partners that are committed to Blue Oval City. We are working through those in conjunction with the mega site authority. Essentially, things are on track and on pace. At this stage, any information regarding the future activities that Ford is working on, that's more for Ford to speak on. But as far as the environmental and the infrastructure needs that are there, we feel really strongly well about where we are now.
Okay. And what is TDEC's plan for the 37 positions once the mega site's infrastructure is completed? And will these positions be reallocated through the department or remain dedicated to the oversight of the mega site infrastructure?
So these positions are being implemented throughout TDEC as far as focusing on Blue Oval City. Blue Oval City efforts have more or less completed in terms of the big effort initially. And so those positions have been, are essentially being throughout the rest of TDEC. We are utilizing those positions to take care of other infrastructure needs as far as that are coming up with the additional industries that are coming to Tennessee. And there are tremendous needs for that. And we have implemented those positions throughout TDEC, sir.
So they will be reallocated.
Yes, they are being reallocated.
Okay. Okay. All right.
Yes.
All right. Thank you, Chairman.
All right, thank you. Next on the list, Chairman Boyd, you're recognized.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, and folks, it's great to see you today. And Deputy Commissioner Brian Clifford, congratulations. I don't think I've seen you before this committee since you've not been before this committee since you got that promotion. I think you've got one of the best jobs in state government. no doubt, and congratulations on that. But my question is not about state parks. My question is something that we're all a little bit concerned with, and that is the resiliency of our electrical grid. And there were some federal dollars, about 7.3 million, that have been allocated. And in this year's budget, there's 1.1 million to draw down on that federal grant, the Electric Grid Formula Grant. That flows through TDEC's Office of Energy Programs. And so I was curious if you could give us an update for years 1 through 4 of the program, and were these funds utilized in all 95 counties? And if not, how were they distributed? It sounds like Molly's coming up to take that question.
This is on. All right. Thank you very much for the question. And first of all,
If
I
you
will
would,
note.
just please identify yourself and introduce
Molly
yourself for us.
Cripps, and I am the Director of the Office of Energy Programs for the Department of Environment and Conservation. And with regard to the grid resilience program that you have inquired about, this is funding that we have received through the Infrastructure Investment and Jobs Act. And unlike some of the funding under that same act that came as one-time funding, the federal government broke this out across what they're calling 5 years. So what we've asked for in the budget is the 15% that is required for state match for year 5. So the prior years that we have received funding for, we worked with a statewide stakeholder group that the Tennessee Electric Cooperative Association and Tennessee Municipal Electric Power Association and TVA helped us convene. So it was local power companies, local governments, et cetera. That work continued over about an 18-month period. Oak Ridge National Lab assisted us with gathering data as well. And through that, we developed our application process, if you will. And we decided to stage that with concept papers that were submitted in the fall, and the concept papers that we encouraged to move forward with an application. Those were due, I believe, at the end of 2025. So the team has been going through those, or excuse me, early 2026. The team has been going through those, Representative, and evaluating to make sure that they are complete applications and are beginning to move through to evaluate to determine which ones will receive funding. Because of the level of funding, it would be impossible for us to touch all 95 counties, unfortunately, or every local power company in Tennessee. And that was what we worked through with that stakeholder working group that I mentioned, is helping focus on what were the highest and best needs across the state of Tennessee. So at this point, we have not funded any projects, but we are hopeful that we will be able to announce those in the April timeframe through that. And I will note that we are still waiting for the federal government to confirm our allocation, our firm allocation for year 5. So once we know that number, then we can add that to that amount that we will hopefully be able to push out. But we'd be glad to walk through any of the concept papers or applications with you should you have further questions once we are farther along.
Well, I do have a question.
Sure.
And so when the funds are distributed, what type of projects will be done with them? And I
Yeah.
did hear you mention the Tennessee Electric Co-op Association. I didn't hear you mention municipals. Are municipals eligible for this?
Yes.
And very specifically, has NES applied for any?
Yes. So we had a combination of co-ops and municipals. And I apologize, I don't have the list right in front of me, but if memory serves, Nashville Electric System did apply. And they applied with a coalition of some smaller local power companies who were not going to be positioned necessarily to apply on their own. And so that is being considered. As far as the projects that are eligible under the Grid Resilience Program, it is everything from vegetation management to outage data management systems to reconductoring of lines. It is a laundry list. So I'll be glad to provide that to you following.
Thank you, Molly. Thank you for your
You're welcome.
answering those questions, and thank you for everything that you do as well for TDEC. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you. Chairman Faison, you're recognized.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Members, and Mr. Chair, with your indulgence, I'm going to go out of order just for a minute. I want to point out a beautiful little lady who's in here today. This is Kennedy in the back. And I'll tell you a quick story about Kennedy and her mom. Isn't she beautiful, y'all? Our committee, over the last 5 or 6 years, we've appropriated some money to the Human Coalition. And that little girl right there is alive today and in this committee because the money that we've appropriated through Human Coalition.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Thank you all for being here. Thank you. Next on the list, Chairman Grills.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, and I too want to congratulate you, Mr. Clifford, and I appreciate your friendship over the years. You and I met really early on when I got down here, and I appreciate just the good conversations we've had going forward. And not just you, but everyone else on the panel here and sitting back there in the back. There's been lots of unique discussions that we've had, and sometimes tense, sometimes friendly, but we've always come to a good conclusion at the end, and I just want to appreciate that working relationship. Last year in that budget, we had a $89.5 million for the Duck River regionalization and planning. So last year, it's my understanding they went around and they had several meetings and put some groups together. Can you just give us an update on where those meetings, what they brought you to in the report, and just give us an understanding where we are now? Whomever it is.
I'm going to defer to Deputy Commissioner Atkins. That is Commissioner Salyer's expertise, but Commissioner Atkins is in the mix.
Deputy Commissioner Samo, thank you for your question. Representative Grills, good to see you this morning. So this morning, regarding Duck River, we have completed the first set of recommendations out of the Duck River Planning Partnership. We provided a list of 18 recommendations to the governor as part of the Executive Order 108 instructions. And we are actively continuing to meet. We have one more year throughout the end of this year to complete that work for the partnership committee. And we're working to make those final recommendations regarding regarding water and drinking water needs for the Duck River watershed. There's still ongoing analysis regarding the different options, whether it be pipelines or other types of intakes along the Duck River. And so we're working to put together a set of recommendations that the governor and you all can take a look at.
What about the ongoing challenges that remain or some of the management styles? Where are we at on those?
Can you?
Well, I hate to start calling cities out, but I'll just do it. Back several years ago, we were dealing with some of the Duck River issues, and there were some cities that were putting contaminants back into the Duck River. Where are we sitting with those now? Have they got those cleaned up? I believe the city of Columbia was one of them. Have they got those cleaned up? And is the river in a better posture now than it was 5 years ago because of those efforts?
I'm going to allow our Director of Division of Water Resources, Ms. April Grippo, to answer your question. Thank you.
Good morning, April Grippo, Director of Water Resources. So we have seen improvements in the Duck River. We've been monitoring it. We monitor on a 5-year cycle. And so I think last time we were asked about this, we had some data from 5 years ago. In the past year, we've been collecting data and are still analyzing that. And later this summer, we should know kind of the whole picture. But in the meantime, we're also seeing improvements in wastewater treatment. So one of the ARP projects in the Columbia area is an improvement in the Columbia wastewater treatment plant. And we anticipate that upgrade will take care of some of the ammonia issues that we saw in previous years.
Now, I want to go thank you for that. Now I want to go just another direction just for a second, Mr. Chairman, if you don't mind. West Tennessee River Basin Authority, big deal in West Tennessee. I see they've asked for, what's that, $274,000. Are there other asks out there that the West Tennessee River Basin Authority may have made that did not get funded, or is there anything? Where are we there with West Tennessee River Basin Authority and the working relationship with TDEC?
Yes, sir. No, in this budget cycle, there was not an additional request by West Tennessee River Basin Authority. In this particular staff continuation, I believe is the last year that we are asking for funding for this particular staff person as the WET, is known as the WET Center, comes online and becomes self-sufficient.
Well, other capital projects they may have, or other needs as far as tools and equipment. There were no asks for those? Is that what you're telling me?
We are double checking. I know we have some ARP money, I believe, that they've applied for in a competitive grant. And are there other funds that?
Okay. We can talk about that later, but thank you. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you, Chairman. Leader Lambert, did he step out? Yep, stepped out. We'll move on to Chairman Hill. You're recognized.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Couple of different things, different issues here. First of all, we all are aware of Winter Storm Fern that we are just getting through. And so my first one had a couple of mayors that reached out to me and to our senator at the same time concerning maybe some difficulty, some overreach maybe with the vegetation management. And here's what was said, that if they had, if you need assistance with tree and vegetation management, please let me know. If you have a large quantity, you will need a staging permit from the division. Here we were in the middle of a major winter storm, and we're requiring a permit just to stage this and clean this up. And it was very frustrating for local leadership. So can you kind of talk about that and why that was required?
Yes, sir. Thank you for your question. The permits, we typically try to work with communities well in advance of natural disasters. We coordinate and meet with them very regularly to identify staging areas in advance. So we try to be proactive. That's first. We want to be proactive in identifying potential staging areas. It's important that we track these. EPA holds us accountable for debris management during natural disasters. And I would say that we are very customer focused in these particular events, and we understand the things that these communities are going through. Many of our staff members are going through them right along with those communities, and so we're understanding. But we also want to communicate what in order to maintain that environmental health and safety, what's needed for that. These sites, in addition to staging for debris, they also may end up in burn piles to be burned. And so there are permitting and things that we need to be mindful of as far as the air quality and making sure we aren't overburdening any communities that are, downwind of these burn sites. And so we want to keep track. We want to be helpful. We want to provide those resources and support to the communities. It's not designed to create another level of stress and strain. And so if we see that, we will work with those communities. That is first and important for us to be a support first and a resource as they're going through that. So we're very cognizant of that. And if we need to, those things will roll up, and we'll take care of that. But we want to make sure that we're also, making sure that they're doing what's necessary, so that we're holding ourselves accountable too.
Okay, thank you. Mr. Chairman, if I can ask another couple of questions here. The Cookeville office, there's been issues. I know that there's a 45-day window there for septic permits, but I've had several individuals plus contractors that's reached out that the Cookeville office is still sometimes some issues that it gets drug out, and they take that full time rather than seem to somewhat some difficulties there. So can you kind of tell me what's going on there, and if we're trying to improve that and where that's at?
Sure. And I may need to look a little bit more specifically into that one office. But in general, we're meeting our timelines. We try to beat that 45-day as best we can. If we can do it in 15 days, that's kind of our internal target. But it's also why we're requesting additional positions to be able to meet these demands and these needs. Our communities are growing at rates that are exceeding the capacity of our staff in many ways. And so this effort today is an effort to try to curb that and bring those turnaround times down well beneath the statutory guidelines. And so we're cognizant of that. There's pressure, obviously, from development and developers and homeowners and folks that are maybe buying their first home. They're excited. We understand that. And so we want to provide better service to our citizens. And so being able to fill those positions should help. And I'm happy to follow up with you on that specific Cookeville issue and dig deeper into that.
Okay, thank you. I appreciate that. And lastly, kind of runs over to a landfill situation in my district. And there seems to be some lack of communication. There'll be some communication and then it just kind of drops, and then they're issued warning, they're issued different things, and then they're calling, and we even had a meeting with y'all last April. So I guess my ask of that is just that we make sure that we're doing the very best we can to communicate with the locals. They're doing everything they can. I was kind of disappointed in the meeting that we had last April with some of the responses of some of the people with the department towards the county. But I just ask that our communication be better with them as we work through that.
Yes, sir.
Thank you so much. Mr. Chairman, thank you.
All right, thank you. Next on the list, Chairman Hawk, you're recognized.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. And in a word of thanks, as Hurricane Helene ravaged Northeast Tennessee about a year and a half ago now, it's hard to believe it's been those many months, but thank you very much. The partnerships that we saw with all state departments was incredible. And the work with our communities was impactful. And thank you. You were right there day one after so many state assets and community assets were gone. And I want to thank you for that. Please share with Commissioner Salyers that we know he would much rather be here than where he is right now. I do know where he is right now. And tell him that, well, when he watches this, thank you all for doing such a great job representing the department. I appreciate that. To the point, talking about community partnerships and where we were with all of our area losses. But Mr. Clifford, you've had a chance to talk about state parks. I'm going to give you another chance to talk about David Crockett Birthplace State Park that was completely wiped off the map. We do have something in our budget that I hope my colleagues will support to rebirth the Birthplace State Park. And if you could kind of talk about that just a little bit.
Thank you, Representative Hawk. Helene showed us a lot about ourselves, and it showed us that this park was very important to that community. And our master planning effort and the public engagement effort was maybe one of the strongest we've ever seen for a state park. The amount of folks that participated in the rebirth process and what they wanted to see out of David Crockett Birthplace State Park was nothing short of amazing following such a horrible disaster in that area. We do have the capital project program underway. Phase 1 includes new roads and utilities, a visitor center, an RV campground with bathhouse. We've got a group camp with a bathhouse, new sewer and septic systems, a nature-themed playscape on site, and then, of course, general landscaping and trails throughout. The funding breakdown for that, a total of $61.8 million for the rebuild of Phase 1. Of the state portion, we're requesting $22.75 million. We also have $27 million that you all set aside in the special session last year that currently sits with TEMA, and we're working with them to make sure those funds are available for this project. And then we also have about $12 million in insurance funds that we hope to receive to help with the rebuild. So the project timeline for this is probably about a 3-year project. By the time we get the funding, hopefully soon, we'll have the design phase for roughly a year, and then we'll move into construction. We think it's about a 3-year timeline between now and when we open.
Chairman Hawk, you're recognized.
And thank you. And thank you very much. It can't happen soon enough. And
Sure.
I've been making promises back home that we're going to start seeing some progress soon. We're hiking on the grounds now. Leader Lamberth was talking about pulling his RV in there, and I hope that he's going to be one of the first campers there that when we get it started. What I'm about to say is called a teaser in the entertainment industry, but we're going to have David Crockett remembrance on the House floor next week, hopefully, if I get everything done on Thursday next week. And our friends from Lawrence County, where David Crockett State Park is, as well as the Birthplace State Park, we're going to be talking about Crockett's legacy of it's next week will be when he the remembrance of when he passed away at the Alamo. So it's a big week. There are people taking pilgrimages right now to the Alamo to think about Crockett. And as we look at the Crockett statue that's going to be coming to the Capitol grounds as we renovate our Capitol grounds here, as well as the rebirth of the state park, Crockett is alive and well in Tennessee, and he's about to come home. So thank you very much for what you're doing. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you, Chairman. Next on the list, Representative Reeves. You're recognized, sir.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I would be remiss if I let Deputy Commissioner Clifford leave without congratulations from his home county's representative on this committee. And so I want to echo some of the others on this committee in saying that we appreciate your service. Williamson County is proud of your appointment last month as Deputy Commissioner. I know you've been hard at work in DDEC for the last 10 years or so. And Mr. Clifford is a leader in our county and a personal friend. And so congratulations again. Thanks.
Thank you, sir.
All right, thank you. Next on the list, Chairman Vaughn, you're recognized. Give us just a second. There we go. You're recognized, sir.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I've got a wide, I hope for some leniency here, I've got a wide array of questions that I have for my friends from the Department of Environment and Conservation. But the first thing, I hate that my colleague from Northwest Tennessee isn't in the room because I'm not sure, but I think it's statutory that anytime you say the word Duck River, you've got to follow it with the most biologically diverse watershed in North America. And so I hate that he didn't get around to that. My first question is with regards to the decentralized sewer system map that was up there. There are, if you look at it, it looks kind of like a dog with mange. There's some spots that aren't filled in. And those data points, out of curiosity, where are those locally controlled decisions that those jurisdictions have decided not to allow sanitary sewer decentralized systems, or is it something geological? Is it something statutory? Why does our map look like that?
Thank you, Representative Vaughn. The map looks like that because those areas that do not have dots have local programs that implement their own septic programs. So TDEC implements programs statewide, but in certain counties, they have their own programs. So they're implementing and running their own permitting for those.
Okay. Mr. Chairman?
Yes, sir. You're recognized.
Thanks for that. That clears one thing up. See, I'm actually easy to resolve. It's pretty simple questions you got coming out of this gourd up here. My next question is, and I appreciate you putting the revenue schedules that were included in your presentation. It was awfully fine print for an old man to have to read. But my question is where do those revenues go with regards to, do they go revert back to when you receive them, do they go into the general fund? And how do you budget for that? Or do they go back into specific programs if there's a permit or a penalty issued or when you receive in revenue? How are those funds taken in and divided throughout the department?
Okay, so I'm assuming we're talking about environmental permitting.
Environmental permitting,
yes,
as well as fines and orders and that type of stuff.
So that would go into our Environmental Protection Fund that is utilized by the programs to implement program-specific needs and things of that nature. And so each division has their own environmental protection fund, and so they would get allocated to those divisions.
Mr. Chairman.
Yes, sir. You're recognized.
So with regard, I'm trying to think of an example of what one of those programs might be. Would that be, when you look at, I know that in my district, we just had a landfill that TDEC was the lead agency on capping, that it went out of business. Does that money go to that, or does it go into smaller remediation projects that may be brought about necessary that no one there's not a responsible party for? I'm just trying to figure out what those programs do.
So I can give you an example regarding the SSDS program. So let's take, for instance, permit fees that come in for that. They would go into the Environmental Protection Fund, and now per our request today to fund 14 positions, we would fund those positions from the funds within that Environmental Protection Fund, where we receive funding either from permit fees, enforcement, and things of that nature. And specifically regarding the landfill, I believe we received a separate piece for that. Yes, we received a separate piece for that one in your district to address and close that landfill that needed closure.
Okay, so those funds did come out of this permit and fine and penalty pot, I
Yes.
guess. Okay, but that's great to know. Then the last thing I've got is more of a philosophical question. I'll lay this one at Deputy Commissioner's feet. Our leader is, I'm shocked that he's ever been to a state park. Never had heard that before in my 9 years. Never heard about his annual travels across the state and his enjoyment of that. I'm going to kind of look at it from another view, and that is because we hear, just like yesterday in higher education, the need for deferred maintenance. My question is, at what point do we get saturation with regards to state parks, and what time do we start? At what point do we struggle with sustainability of those parks, and how much is enough? Is there a national standard by folks who love parks that come up with that we're shooting for, or is this, how do you handle how many state parks that you program and determine the fiscal viability of moving forward? Because every time we add one, it becomes an expense. And in some cases, not every, because some are state natural areas, but in some cases, it's taking productive property off the tax rolls, even though it may be green belted. But that's a question for you, Assistant Commissioner.
Great. Thank you for the question. So over this administration, we started early by visiting communities across the state and doing a lot of listening to what they wanted. And a lot of what we've done over the past several years is in response to that. When we go to rural communities and we talk to mayors and other elected officials and tourism folks, they all speak to what they want in their communities. And 9 times out of 10, they speak to their outdoor assets, especially in our rural communities. They want more opportunity to engage in outdoors, but they also see it as an economic driver. So when we bring a state park to a community, it really improves the quality of life and economic output in that community. And really what we've been doing is just responding to citizen demands over the past several years. There's not necessarily a scientific approach or a national standard that we're implementing more than we're just trying to listen to our citizens about what they want. The sustainability of it, this General Assembly in the state has taken the approach that we don't charge access fees. So it's really on us as well to make sure we operate a state park system that is sustainable. And we do a really good job, I think, of leveraging our assets to generate revenues, and we produce quite a bit of revenues. And you see that in the budget this year that we're recognizing some of those. As far as properties off the tax roll, in reality, the 12 out of the last 14 parks were existing public lands. We haven't taken any new property other than 2 properties off of the tax rolls. We're just enhancing public lands that already exist and making them more productive for our citizens so that they're able to improve their quality of life, get outside more, and see the economic impact from those public lands that may have been underutilized before they became a state park.
Mr. Chairman.
Great answer. I can see why you're Deputy Commissioner. Congratulations, by the way. That's
Thanks,
it
sir.
for me, Mr. Chairman.
All right, thank you. Let's go to Leader Lamberth for recognition.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, and we've had a lot of those questions offline, but I'm glad that we're doing that publicly as well, because it is a good thing to have, not just add new parks, as much as I do love them, obviously, but to do that in a very reasonable and responsible way so that it serves all Tennesseans. If you have them all clustered up together, it kind of defeats the purpose. So I have two guests today that are with us, and if you can help them feel welcome. Dr. Gary Barker is in the back of the room, one of the finest chiropractors in the state of Tennessee. Thank you, Dr. Barker. And I have Holly Hembrick with me, our Register of Deeds in Sumner County. Holly, good to see you today. Y'all please help her make the photo. Thank you, Chairman.
Thank you all for being here. Next on the list, Leader Camper, you're recognized.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Thank you for your vision around state parks. And I'm hoping that at some point we can make a huge investment in T.O. Fuller Park. And visiting T.O. Fuller maybe a couple years ago now, it was really in need of a lot of investment. The pool, vegetation, and the governor, he had his budget requests maybe a couple years ago that was focused on state parks. And I was really hoping T.O. Fuller made, the cut, but it didn't. And I'm curious about what your master plan, you just mentioned you did a listening tour, that there's this master plan. And I'm interested to know, where does T.O. Fuller fit in this overall plan? We talked about what it does for a community. We talked about the economics, and that particular area in Shelby County could definitely use an economic boost. It used to be a very thriving park, the golf course and all of these things. So tell me what the plan is for T.O. Fuller Park.
Great. Thank you for the question. So T.O. Fuller, of course, is an existing park. So a lot of the investments that we make are improving either deferred maintenance or existing facilities there. You mentioned the pool. That one is still at T.O. Fuller. Some other parks we are relieving of their pool, but that was one that we continue to invest in for that community. And we can get you a list of deferred maintenance projects that are happening at T.O. Fuller. It is looked at similar to every other existing state park to make sure we're taking care of deferred maintenance, that it is an asset for the community, and that we're good fiscal stewards of that park and what it provides.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Thank you. And so when you provide the information, would it give me like a timeline so that we can have a reasonable expectation of when these things are going to happen? Because it looked like it's really been a long time for T.O.
It will. Any project we have going will have a timeline. The Department of General Services stream manages all capital projects. So any projects we're doing there will also involve that department, but we are happy to get that list for you.
And you'll be able to work with Stream so I just get one piece of information from you and not, it all come from you is what I'm asking.
Sure, we can consolidate that.
Yeah, will
Yes,
you
ma'am.
consolidate it so that I can get it? Because I tell you, it's not the district that I represent, but I still get the calls. You're the leader, okay? You can make it happen. Anyway, it's something that's a real concern in Memphis and Shelby County. So I appreciate
Yes, ma'am.
you responding and getting me the information. Then I'll get it to the appropriate representative and senator that represents that area.
Happy
Thank
to.
you. All right.
Thank you.
Appreciate it.
Thank you, Leader Camper. Next on my list is Representative Sparks.
Thank you, Chairman. Commissioner, appreciate the meeting last week with you and Allie Williamson. Appreciate Christina Tricula always staying in touch on issues. One of the biggest issues in my county of Rutherford, which is the fastest growing county in the state, is our landfill. We've got 34 counties that are really dumping on us, and it's a big issue for us, big issue for my mayor. But my mayor's got a question. Mayor Joe Carr, he was asking me how vertical expansion at Middle Point is any different than a horizontal expansion when the law and TDEC regulations don't distinguish between the two. And what other landfills in Tennessee have an approved slope of greater than 3 to 1? I don't know who wants to take that question.
Thank you. Would you repeat just the beginning of the question just one more time, please?
At the beginning, he's asking the vertical expansion at Middle Point landfill, how is that any different than a horizontal expansion when the law and TDEC regulations don't distinguish between the two?
Okay, I would like to allow Mr. Jeremy Hooper, advisor from TDEC, to answer this
Yes, sir.
question.
Thank you.
Thank you. Jeremy Hooper, advisor with the Bureau of Environment under TDEC. So that, given that there's ongoing litigation on that, we can't speak to that particularly. If you're talking about the slopes of other landfills,
Yes, sir.
I don't know off the top of my head. I'm happy to get back with our folks and get you an answer, though.
Yes, sir. Chairman, if I may, another question is from one of my colleagues here. He asked if TDEC sent someone out yesterday to inspect the violation that occurred over the weekend. If you could speak to that.
Yes, sir. We did, and I'm just waiting to hear back from them. So happy to follow up with you all, but we'll be following up with the person who filed the complaint as well.
Yes, sir. And if I could, Chairman.
Representative?
The meeting we had the other day, it was a great meeting. It's kind of good news. We love our parks, no doubt. Wife and I visit when we can. But I share with you, I've got a 95-year-old investor, Mr. Charles Jones, 95 years old. He owns the Milky Way farm. I hope he doesn't mind me mentioning him here, but he grew up in an old community called Old Jefferson, which was the first county seat, Rutherford County, first town. But here's what's significant about this community. The Corps of Engineers took their property when they built Percy Priest Dam, displaced all the homes, all the folks. Mr. Charles Jones grew up out there. He remembers going down Nissan Drive or Samuel Parkway before Seward Air Force Base was even constructed, a World War II base. It's kind of hard to fathom that. But what's significant about this piece of property, which I think could be a potential state park or working with Smyrna somehow, the Trail of Tears come through there. And the first black lawmaker was born out there, Samson Keeble. We see his bust up here at the Capitol. But I appreciate you coming over. And this man, what's significant about it, and I'm not trying to be funny, but we don't have a lot of time on our hands. He's 95, and I know you're looking to expand parks. It's a beautiful story. It's a beautiful area. We're doing a tour this Saturday at 10 o'clock, Old Jefferson, Buckeye Bottom Road. You have a historian out there. Can you expand on who you've got visiting?
Yes, sir. Thank you for that. This is part of our effort to listen. When things like this come up, we want to make sure that we consider all the options. And for this visit, we're sending Hobart Aiken, our Tennessee State Parks historian, to come and listen to the story of this property, what's involved, the things you just mentioned, so that we can get an understanding of how important it is for the state of Tennessee.
Yes.
And we are looking forward to that visit.
And he's willing to put up a significant amount of money. I won't say how much, but I think it's a cool partnership and it's a cool legacy for Mr. Charles Jones, who does own the Milky Way farm. Thank you, Commissioner.
Thanks, sir.
Thank you, Representative Sparks. Representative Parkinson, I have two more people on the list. Just want to let you know we're 5 minutes over on committee, and Gary Hicks left me since we were. So if we could be concise, that'd be great. Thank you,
Sure.
Representative Parkinson.
Sure. Thank you, Mr. Chair. And thank you to the team and commissioners for all that you do. I had a chance to hang out with you for a couple of days at Montgomery Bell State Park. Really enjoyed it. Learned a whole lot. I do have a question along the lines of what Leader Camper was speaking to in regards to any investment that is being made in both T.O. Fuller and Meeman Shelby. Meeman Shelby is a favorite of mine because it is I think the most incredible hiking that we have in Shelby County. I do want to put this on your mind as you know you respond to this. There's this trifecta of destinations in Memphis and Shelby County. One is we have Memphis Motorsports Park that's about to receive a significant investment. That same customer, 72% of the revenue that was generated when Memphis Motorsports Park was open before was outside dollars, 72%. And, with crowds of 40,000 or so over the weekends. And that same customer is also a customer of Bass Pro. That same customer is also a customer of Graceland. Now, I would like for you guys to consider lodging in either one or both of these state parks to help house that customer, because that same customer is a customer of adventure tourism and outdoors also. And I think we're missing an opportunity here to really make those investments where those customers that are coming in for these destinations would want to stay. And it would create a longer stay for those individuals that come into Memphis and Shelby County. And so I think that's important. I really, really want us to be intentional about having those conversations about those types of investments, just as we've done in Montgomery Bell State Park. Feel free to respond or not.
Great, thank you for that. And with me and Shelby, I'll be happy to give you a list of the investments we're making. Your comment about overnight lodging in our urban areas, it's always tough for us when we think about that because we certainly don't want to compete with the private sector. So if you're close in proximity to the place where private sector can provide accommodations, we don't want government to step into that space. So parks like that, we're always open to listen and consider those options, but we also have to consider to make sure we don't compete with the private sector. And because it is so close to an urban area, that's probably going to be one of the considerations that we have on the table as we look to either expand accommodations or hospitality assets.
Just a quick follow-up, Mr. Chair, very quick.
Yes.
One of the things that I don't think you're going to get opposition to is more hotel space in Memphis and Shelby County.
Okay.
So it would be welcome, and it's specifically for this target demographic. So thank you
Yes,
for
sir. Thank you.
Thank you. Next on my list, Representative Kaplan.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Oh, just kidding. Hey, thank you, Mr. Chairman. Members, my county executive of Lawrence County just walked in the room. His name is David Morgan. He is on the front row. David, please stand up. Stand up, David. Come on. Y'all make it feel welcome. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you. I do not have anyone else on the list. Deputy Commissioners, thank you very much for your time today. Appreciate you very much. And next up, we do have Mr. Jason Maxedon with expert caller, and Director of TWRA is next up on your list. And so if you guys will go ahead, thank you very much. If you guys will go ahead and make your way up, when you get settled, we will turn your microphones on so you can speak. And if you will make introductions, and then we'll get started right away. You can turn me on.
Well, good afternoon, Mr. Chairman and members of the committee. Thank you all for allowing us to come in and present our budget to you today. I would like to start out by introducing our team that's here with me today. I'll start out on my far right. That is Deputy Director Frank Fiss. He is our Deputy Director over Business Operations. And then I think you all know this young lady in the middle, Ms. Blair Beatty. She is our Legislative Director. And then to the left is Brandon Ware. He is our Deputy Director over our Field Operations. And then to his left is Mr. Ken Tarkington. He is our Budget Director for the Tennessee Wildlife Resources Agency. I'd also like to recognize some Tennessee Fish and Wildlife Commissioners that have traveled in to be with us today. I think they're the fourth row back, but those are several of our commissioners that have traveled in. On the far right is Commissioner Greg Davenport. He is the chair this year, brand new chair of the Tennessee Fish and Wildlife Commission. And then to his right is Commissioner Steve Jones. He's our secretary. And moving down the line is John McCarty. He traveled in from the Collierville area. He's a district appointment there. And then Brad Box to his right from Jackson, Tennessee. And then our vice chair, Ms. Rhonda Moody from Allert, Tennessee. So she's from up around the plateau. So appreciate our commissioners traveling in to support us here today. Mr. Chairman, I'll jump right into the presentation there. This first slide just kind of gives a little bit of an overview of the Tennessee Wildlife Resources Agency. We're about 750 staff members strong all across the state. There's about 250 of those. These are the ones that you see most in your districts. These are going to be our wildlife and boating officers that you see out on the water and out in the field. We have about 350 field operations staff. These would be folks managing our wildlife management areas, our fish hatcheries, a lot of our wildlife technicians that really get the on-the-grounds work done out in your districts. And then about 150 business support staff. I always like to say this. I am proud to say that we are still coming to the office 5 days a week. We have 4 regional offices all across the state, and then one central office here, and it takes a big support staff to be able to keep those going. A lot of our customers are an older age demographic, so they do like to talk to somebody in person. So we like to have folks there to sell them a hunting, fishing license and be able to answer their questions in person at our offices. We manage about 1.6 million acres. A lot of this is in conjunction with partners like the U.S. Fish and Wildlife Service, the U.S. Forest Service, the Army Corps of Engineers, the Tennessee Valley Authority. About 600,000 acres of that is under state ownership and managed by us. We have 1,200 boat access areas. This is probably what you call us about the most throughout the year. I think you hear from a lot of your constituents about access areas. This would be boat ramps, and they range in size from a gravel ramp that may be less than an acre all the way up to 200 and 300 slips on some of the bigger reservoirs that are out there. 21 shooting ranges. Now, this is something that is really growing, that we're trying to really ramp up our marketing campaign. Our marketing team is really trying to promote shooting. As you all know, we get those Pittman and Robertson funds. That's the excise tax that comes on the sales of firearms and ammunition. But we also really are using this as a recruitment tool. Our license sales are pretty much stagnant in Tennessee and all other states. But we're trying to recruit folks into some of these shooting ranges. 4 of those are manned. The rest of these are unmanned, meaning you can go to a WMA and sight in a rifle or shoot a pistol or whatever you want. But as far as our marketing campaign goes, we're trying to get like Ladies Night Out. We will have them come in and shoot and then roll things on the screens and have our staff talk to them about hunting and angling, trying to get more folks involved through this avenue. 49 species unique to Tennessee. I'm not going to go into the biodiversity there, Representative Vaughn. I'm scared to do that now, but we have 300 fish species, 400 bird species, and then our 4 iconic big game species. That would be elk in East Tennessee, which we're very excited about, the white-tailed deer, the eastern wild turkey, and of course, black bear. One thing that we really pride ourselves in doing is trying to do outreach events in your districts. Thank you. I know a lot of you show up, a lot of you participate. Even some of you have helped fund some of those. So thank you so much for that. We're trying to get out in your districts and do outreach events. Tell a little bit more about who we are, tell a bit more about our story, and then obviously recruit folks into hunting and angling and trying to keep that tradition going on in the state of Tennessee. We do about 10,000 boater ed certifications. As you all know that have reservoirs in your districts, this is something that is really growing. We're finding more folks need certifications to be able to boat safely on our waters in Tennessee. About 8,500 hunter ed folks are certified each year. I know there's a bill out there now by a couple of members that are trying to get this into school systems. That would be great. If that passes, we would love to be able to see that to get more folks hunter ed certified. And then 178,000 magazine subscriptions. If you have a lifetime license or sportsman's license, you are probably a recipient in your household. We're always excited to get stories out there about what our folks are doing and about the great wildlife habitat and the species that we manage. Very excited to say that we did get a economic impact study done. I know that's been a request of this body before, is to try to be able to tell more of what the economic impact is to the state of Tennessee from hunting and angling. We went through the UT Boyd Center to get that survey done, so we're grateful to be able to get that. Thank you for prompting us to do that. That's data that we did not have before. That study was just completed. About $5.8 billion of income is generated, according to that study, from hunting and angling in Tennessee and outdoor recreation associated with hunting and angling. About $1.8 billion in tax revenue to our state, and about 214,000 jobs are created through hunting and fishing. So very excited about that and happy to report that to you. I'll jump right into the actual budget presentation. I do want to talk about how our funds work. I know sometimes folks think we're different, and we are because of our federal match. That's the main thing. But we have 3 separate funds that we operate out of. First, you see there's the Wildlife Fund. You tell you a little bit about that. 43% of the income that comes in there is from the sale of hunting and fishing licenses. 35% is federal reimbursement. That would be things like Pittman and Robertson and Nigel Johnson. That's those excise taxes. And then we can do reimbursement of the Wetlands Acquisition Fund. That's about 22%, and the interest on some of our other funds. Project examples of how we spend that money on wildlife management areas. We do fish stocking, enforcement, and then shooting ranges. The boating fund, about 40% of that revenue comes in through boat registrations. So if you're a recreational boater or you have a boat that you fish out of, you know you have to have that boat registered, and that's where that income comes from. 23% federal reimbursement there, and then 37% gasoline tax. Some project examples of how we spend those funds. would be on safety and education, enforcement, those ramps that we're talking about in your district, courtesy docks. A lot of you are seeing pretty nice courtesy docks put on your lakes or reservoirs right now in your areas. We're happy about that, and fishing piers. And then last is the Wetlands Acquisition Fund. That's where we get 3.25% on 100 of the real estate transfer tax. That's to the tune of about $23 million annually is about what that comes to the agency. That's big money to us. We're very thankful for that. It historically has been used for purchasing wetland habitat and maintenance of state properties. You all were kind enough this past year to pass a bill for us that freed that money up, that we were able to use that for law enforcement purposes. I'm happy to report to you that we are spending that fund down. There's been some questions about the balance in that fund. We spent about $16 million in this budget cycle on law enforcement. One thing to note on that people have said, well, I think this is going to take care of your funding issue. It is not going to take care of our funding issue. There will be about $4 million available next year in that balance to be able to spend on law enforcement, and then we will pretty much have that fund spent down. Now, if you remember, there was a floor that was requested of us to leave in there of about $6 million in case any properties did come up. So we've got to keep a $6 million floor in that fund. So here's the base budget request before you today. In the wildlife fund, it's a little over $119 million. And the boating fund is about $18.5 million. And then in the wetland fund is a little over $24 million. So what were some of the cost increases before you this year? The statutory salary step increase. This is the same thing that you find the highway patrol on. This is the 4.5% step increase that goes to our wildlife division employees, mainly comprised of our wildlife officers. That's about $3.4 million reoccurring dollars. And then next up is going to be capital projects. That's $10 million one-time money. This is funded by the state general fund. We intend to address capital projects and maintenance that have been deferred for some time with this money. Next up is the Tennessee National Guard Sportsman's License. That's $2.5 million reoccurring dollars. This is for Tennessee National Guard Sportsman's License from the state general fund. This is something that Governor Lee wanted to do, was put this in there to take care of our active duty National Guard members. This will be reimbursement for free license distributed by the Tennessee Wildlife Resources Agency. It assures no loss to the agency. However, I do want to make a point. It is not an additional funding method for us. That money would just be reimbursed for those licenses that are sold to those. And those will be a sportsman's license. That's going to be a nice thing to do for the Tennessee National Guard members. And then last that you see is $100,000 reoccurring for Hunters for the Hungry from the State General Fund. In recent years, this has been a direct appropriation of $150,000. So now it's going to be reoccurring money. We grant these dollars to a partnering organization, and currently that's the Tennessee Wildlife Federation. You all have probably heard of this program. It's a great program to be able to help feed the needy. That's the Hunters for the Hungry program. Again, it'll be $100,000 reoccurring there. So what does the future funding of wildlife look like? I know we've talked to many of the members, probably just about everybody here, about our funding situation, about the deficit that we've incurred. An increase in operational expenses occurred with a couple of the absence of license fee adjustments since 2015. And that has led to cost surpassing revenue. This method is no longer sustainable, not just in Tennessee, but all the other states across the country that are self-funded through the sale of hunting and fishing licenses. Those states that are funded that way are running into the same issues we are. In fact, a lot of states that aren't funded that way are still going up on their licenses to be able to raise fees to have another funding source or a different method. Without additional corrective action, the wildlife fund will be depleted by FY30. So it gets pretty serious for us very quickly. And members, you all encouraged us last year. You know that our Tennessee Fish and Wildlife Commission sought out a license fee increase. Again, that is still currently our only method to try to address some of these funding issues and provide the same services. We all know that wasn't found favorably. Several members said, hey, let's fast forward to next year. We will try to help you with a funding bill. A reoccurring appropriation of $18.5 million would provide stability and services for another 10 years. I'm happy to report to you that there are 2 bills out there this year, and we're very thankful to these members for being willing to carry these bills. That's House Bill 2138. That's going to be Speaker Marsh and Stevens on the Senate side. And that particular bill, in case you don't know, is the Tennessee Valley Authority PILT money that comes into the state general fund is about $200 million this past year. That does fluctuate up and down a little bit each year. That bill is saying that 10% of that would go to the wildlife fund if that is passed. That would take care of that $18.5 million funding deficit. That would be a great deal for the state of Tennessee. That would be what I would consider to be a legacy project to get dedicated funding here. The other bill that's up is 2118, carried by Chairman Crawford. I think he stepped out of there. And then Senator Sutherland, Chairman Sutherland on the Senate side. The Department of Revenue put a fiscal note to the taxes that are generated on outdoor products in the state of Tennessee that are hunting and fishing related, and that fiscal note come up to about $284 million there. Mr. Chairman, that is a lot, and thank you for the time. We are grateful to be here before this body to present and be happy to answer any questions.
All right, Director Maxedon, thank you for your presentation. Thank you for being here. Let's begin. You've mentioned the 10 million in the general fund subsidy. Last year, there was a request for 5 million that was just for capital projects. This year, you've asked for 10 million, but there's also the ability for you all to be able to use that as operating. I guess, how much of the 10 million do you plan on using for operating versus those capital projects?
Yes, sir. So we would plan on using all of that. Pretty much what we're doing is using that for deferred maintenance projects. We've got projects that are outlined that we provided to F&A for that. Most of those are where we kicked the can down the road, honestly, on projects where we just had deferred maintenance. Most of those would be on fish hatcheries. And then there is one project up on the plateau called Daddy's Creek Bridge. It's a major bridge project with Tennessee Department of Transportation. That would take about $900,000 of that money to be able to go toward repairing or actually putting up a new bridge there on Daddy's Creek.
Has the 5 million from last year been expended?
It should all be expended by the end of June. There was a new Hunter Ed facility being built at Buffalo Ridge Refuge in Humphreys County, Tennessee. And that money is being spent on that facility right now. That project is probably about 3/4 of the way. It's erected right now. It's probably about 3/4 of the way being completed.
Okay. So what's the, and I know this is, you've touched on this, but what is the driving force behind TWRA needing the general fund subsidies?
Most of it is going to be unfunded mandates. So if you go back in time, we haven't had a fee increase since 2015, and that has gotten us in this position. You know, we're 36% behind on CPI, and we've just gotten behind. All of our costs have increased just like any business would, and it's gotten us behind. And then the unfunded mandates. I mean, a good example is Lake Alfred. This body wanted us to take over Lake Alfred. We had to spend about $1 million the first year, and it cost us about $500,000 reoccurring annually to be able to take care of that lake and operate it. Chairman Faison always brings up one that's non-game that we've been saddled with about $3.5 million of managing non-game in the state of Tennessee. And then obviously the salary compensation package. That was a big one. We're grateful for that, but that was over $10 million reoccurring dollars to the agency. All other state departments, you know, got the same, but they had money provided to them to do that. We had to take that out of our wildlife fund to be able to do that, and that put us in that position.
Let's kind of keep going there just a little bit and talk about licenses. How do we compare our state versus states around us as far as how much our costs are with licenses versus those around us?
That's a great question. And so our commission really had us look into that 2 years ago when they were looking at this license fee increase. And it's all over the board. It's hard to compare apples to apples because every state sells a different license package. And so what we did, our hunt and fish combo, our two most common licenses we sell is going to be a sportsman's license and a hunt and fish combo. And there was states that touch us that are higher than us, and there's some states that are less. Most of the states that were less are getting the general fund subsidy or a portion of a tax, and they're able to offer that license at a cheaper price. Kentucky, Arkansas, and Mississippi were all higher than us. I mean, those are some of the states that touch us that were higher on that package of that particular license. So we're pretty comparable. Our sportsman's license was the highest of all the other states, but it's an all-inclusive license. With our sportsmen, we're offering a lot more than the other states, meaning you can get full access to all the WMAs. It's just different things. It's hard to describe that, but that's the best way to describe it, Mr. Chairman, on that.
And then what percentages of our licenses are Tennesseans versus non-residents?
It's about 1/3 and 2/3. We sell right at 1 million licenses. I think about 700,000 of those are going to be resident licenses. And then the rest of them are going to be non-resident licenses.
And then to kind of tie this conversation up, so as far as what, I guess your fee revenue today versus what it was 5-10 years ago, what does that look like? Just, can you give us an idea?
Yeah, we're about the same. Hey, look, I've actually got the fee revenue. So we're generating about $40 million is what we're generating right now in license sales revenue. And that's going to be on 968,233 licenses is what that's on. So just under 1 million licenses. One of the things that you all did, Chairman, that really helped us was that lifetime license. Y'all passed a bill 2 years ago that freed that up. You know, it helps us in the short term, long term, probably not so much, but that freed up about $3.5 million. And when we had the proposed license fee increase, folks actually went out and bought, they thought the sportsman's license or the lifetime license was going to go away. So that actually gave us a little boost in income. A lot of folks went out and purchased that license thinking that package may go away. So that helped us a little bit on the short term.
And then changing gears just a little bit, how much land are you all managing today versus what you were, say, 10 years ago?
We actually had that number for Chairman, doggone off the top of my head, but it's probably about 300,000 more over the last 10 years. I may be a little bit off on that figure, but we actually had that for Chairman, and I'm not remembering the number. He's grinning. I'm looking at him. He may remember it better than I can, but I could get that information for you specifically on what it is.
I'd love to see that if you could.
I'll get
I
that
appreciate
for you.
that. All right, let's move on to some other folks. Let's go to Chairman Vaughn. Chairman Vaughn, you are recognized.
Hey, thank you, Mr. Chairman. Got a couple of different categories here for you, Commissioner. Let's talk about the National Guard Sportsman's License program, the proposed program. Right now, how many other free licenses do y'all distribute?
There are no others.
What are the other categories? So there's no one else that would receive. Nope, this is a new program. So we can't compare it to anything. Okay.
That's correct.
Do you have any idea of currently how many members of the National Guard are paying for license?
I am going to look to Deputy Director Fisk because he worked with all the folks to be able to generate the numbers for that physical note.
My microphone is on. Not yet. There you go.
All right, great. I'm Frank Fisk, Deputy Director of Business Operations. Yes, I would say that the National Guard members, if they're like regular citizens, there's some percentage of them that are going to have a license. Off the top of my head, I would say, maybe 30% or so would have that license. There's 13,000 members of the, I believe it's the air soldiers and airmen that are in the Tennessee National Guard. And we're going to work closely with the Department of Military to determine which ones are in good standing to be eligible for this license. And I think the fiscal note on this, their intention of setting it at $2.5 million was if everybody bought one, they would be covered. Remember, there's no extra money coming to the agency. That money is just there to cover in case there's a rush on these licenses. But we're happy to serve that role, and the money would be there to reimburse the agency for our loss.
But I attended Harvard by the river, and they taught us how to use a calculator down there, and it's about 16,000 sportsman's license at $165 a pop. I would assume that would be the same. You would assume that they would be getting retail for those licenses.
Plus the 3% handling fee, yes. $168 per individual.
All righty. Thank you, sir. Mr. Chairman, I got another question on another subject matter.
Please go right ahead.
With the Wetlands Acquisition Fund, that is a program that I'm curious as to how much did the enforcement siphon off of that? And do you have any projects or takedowns in the pipeline or acquisitions looking forward that you're thinking about acquiring? Because honestly, this is the purest way for a agency of the government to preserve wetlands is to actually purchase it from the landowner to preserve it rather than taking people's property through an antiquated, overly aggressive isolated wetlands program. But I understand you may have been robbing that for some enforcement money. How does that program look for the coming year?
Okay, so this fiscal year, 16 million is what we will take from that to spend on law enforcement operations. And we will be spending that balance down. We will spend 4 million on that next year. And to kind of go into the wetlands, we've listened to this body. We've, I think, heard loud and clear that, there's folks aren't wanting us to continue to purchase lands. There's still some in the hopper, meaning you will still see some that close. We've had some that are out there. We've worked with the Heritage Conservation Trust Fund. There's one big property down near your area, Wolf River, that still hasn't closed out that we're working on with TDEC and with Heritage Conservation Trust Fund. We've got a couple in East Tennessee. They're still in the hopper. Once all those close, we're pretty much halting unless there's a really key piece of property that touches us somewhere that comes up. But we're kind of halting purchasing lands at this time.
All righty. Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Appreciate y'all being here.
Yes, sir.
All right, thank you. We do have several other folks, but I do want to recognize some folks that just came in. Want to recognize first, back in the back, my Claiborne County Mayor, Mr. Joe Brooks. Joe, stand up and let us recognize you. Thank you for being here this morning. Also, I have some friends from back home. I'm going to ask them to stand up. They're smiling because they know I'm about to do this. So I'm going to ask Maria Catherine to please stand up. She's from the Oak Ridge Housing Authority. She's actually in Rick Scarborough's district now, but I still claim her back in Rogersville, her and her family. So thank you for being here, Maria. Also, we have Lindy Turner and Trina McCausland from back in Clinch Powell. Thank you all for being here this morning as well. All right, next on the list, we do have Chairman Hicks of Washington. You're recognized.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Director, thank y'all for being here. It was recently discovered that TWRA have been entering into leases without coming before the State Building Commission. Does the TWRA have an understanding now of what the process needs to be, and will they be executing any more leases, or will they all be going before the State Building Commission?
I think we have been requested to come before the State Building Commission. That has been corrected, and we will be doing that. Yes, sir.
So the agency is doing some new things to make sure that this happens and
Yes,
moving
sir.
forward.
Yes, sir. It is correct.
Thank you. Thank you.
Yes, sir.
Appreciate you. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
All right, thank you. Next on the list, Representative Gant, you're recognized, sir.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman and Director. Thank you for being here, you and your team. And I basically want to reiterate my support for the recurring funding on this. And as a matter of fact, I was with our good friend Bill Dance Friday, and he said, whatever you do, make sure they understand I'm supportive of this. And his take on this, if you talk to him, it's about the future of Tennessee outdoors and the integrity of what we're putting out there for younger generations, our youth, to enjoy. And me and Representative Faison were talking about his son has gotten hooked on fishing at an early age, and my two boys got hooked on fishing and hunting at an early age. And that investment that we see across our state, that this money that we're talking about recurring funding, it's not only just dollars that we're looking at, it's investing in lives, younger generations that are going to grow up in a state that valued the outdoors. And can you imagine a continued opportunity for kids to be hooked on fishing and hunting instead of drugs? And that's what we're doing. And so I just want to reiterate, thank you for what you do, the Tennessee Wildlife Officers for what they do. And many people don't realize the importance of this. And I hope we can bring great awareness to this as we go forward. And I'm very supportive, and I would encourage my colleagues to take a close look at this dedicated recurring funding that is so badly needed for the future of our Tennessee outdoors. So thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you, Representative Gant. Next on the list, Chairman Faison. Chairman Faison, you're recognized.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I don't have a question, but I would like for this committee to know that we're kind of in the presence of a legend when it comes to state employees. and someone, in my opinion, and probably in the TWR's opinion that is of greatness. And that's Mr. Ken right there. I don't know if y'all realize this, but he's been a state employee since the 60s, if I remember right, and been with the TWRA for probably 40-ish years. Am I wrong, y'all? And he's treasured from a lot of people, and he runs the budget TWRA. But I just thought it's amazing that we have somebody. How many years with the state? Got 55, 56 years?
Yes, sir.
Whew. That's amazing, y'all. He deserves some love.
All right, next on the list, Representative Freeman, you're recognized.
Thank you, Chairman. Director, thank you for being here. Thanks for all you do. Couple of questions, not necessarily related. First and foremost, I've heard it explained over the years that the lifetime license for the youth is a way to encourage younger generations of Tennessee to get into hunting and fishing. And $300 for a child to get their license at 1 or 2, it may be great monetarily if they never would have purchased a license later in life, but do we have any data that shows, is this program in fact encouraging younger children to hunt and fish, or are we just, is there another model? Because, to me, I bought one for my kids and maybe they hunt and fish later in life, maybe they don't, but I would much rather them pay that $168, $70 to go into the fund to protect wildlife habitats across our state. Are we looking at this model, and is it the right model for us to use?
We have actually, when we were doing our license fee increase, our commission charged us with that to look into that. And so we did a survey. I think you posed a good question. We had the same question. How many folks are really using these licenses? And that survey came back that actually 80% of youth are using those, and it continues on through life. That number surprised me. I thought that there would be a lot, but it turns out a lot of folks that are buying those licenses for their children and grandchildren are hunters and anglers. We're not finding that very many people outside of that network buy, so they try to pass that on to those youth to be able to use it. Now, long-term, is it sustainable? No, because after it pays out, Frank has run all the numbers and his team, we start seeing what we're losing on those licenses over time. At first, we thought that it was a good investment. My understanding is historically the agency thought that. They thought that in the early days that they may only sell a few 100,000 of these, and obviously it's grown. It's a great investment and a great tool to be able to buy that for your children, but it's not a good long-term investment for the agency to endure that.
Well, I would encourage you and the commissioners to look into maybe keeping, because it initially started with just 65 plus, right? And that was where it started. And then we've expanded the program. And to me, a 65 plus makes sense, but allowing us to let, Tennesseans buy a license, maybe we do a free hunting day to encourage folks to do a free fishing day, but it's just not sustainable. And for you guys to have to continue to come up here and be creative in different ways to raise money, for all that you do, again, to protect habitat across our state, I think is, you're doing yourself a disservice. Changing topics. And this is for Representative Hawk. Back in the 50s, you guys reintroduced wild turkey in Tennessee. And by the 90s, when I was a young man and whatever it was, it was already a giant success. Now we've seen the reintroduction of elk. Are there other programs that you guys are thinking about reintroduction of other wildlife across our state?
Actually, yes, right now, the red cockaded woodpecker, we're looking at a reintroduction with our partners at the U.S. Fish and Wildlife Service. No other game species at this time. Now, you might say quail is another one. We have really been working hard to bring quail back. We've spent a lot of resources, money, and time. We think we're starting to move the needle a little bit. We're actually to have a drawn quota hunt up on the plateau in one of our areas this year, which we were excited about. But no other game species that are typically hunted at this time.
Got it. Well, thanks again for all you do.
Yes, sir. Thank you.
Thank you. Leader Lambert, follow up on this questioning.
Yes, sir. Chairman, thank you. And on that line of question from a friend from Davidson County, I hope that we would never, and that the agency would never renege on the promise of those lifetime permits that have been issued. Looking forward, and I just want to kind of hear it publicly, that there's never going to be an effort, and there never would be any kind of a push to, I guess, recall the lifetime permits that are already out there. All we're talking about is what you would do going forward. Is that accurate?
That's correct, Mr. Leader. Yes, sir.
Okay, thank you.
All right, thank you. Next on the list, Chairman Grills. Chairman Grills, you're recognized.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, and obviously Director Max Stein is his family live in my district. I've known him for a long time. Impeccable character, awesome guy. Happy to see him there. And Blair and I, we've gone round and round. We're brother and sister relationship, fight like that from time to time. And we've had several conversations about different things. And I'm always talking about new acquisition and the land being bought. And it's been brought to my attention that that the Wetlands Fund, the Wildlife Fund, whatever it is, that these dollars are used to buy these new properties. They don't really add a lot of expense to the maintenance. Explain that to me once again, please, if you don't mind.
Okay. So, well, let me kind of tell a little bit. So the properties that we purchase obviously are from willing sellers. And a lot of times the wetland properties are ones typically, Chairman, that farmers don't want. Of some in your district that we purchased. So typically it's where they can't make a crop and they want to be able to sell that. And they come to the wildlife agency. The only ones that we're currently buying are things that touch our existing wildlife management areas. And that's so we don't have to add existing staff to be able to go and maintain those. Very few standalone properties. We did that Hatchie Tract was one of the very few that's a standalone, which came from the Heritage Conservation Trust Fund. We didn't put any dollars into that other than the closing costs that were associated with that. And so the way that we manage a lot of these properties, we gave a presentation at the Ag Committee recently talking about how we manage these properties passively. And so a lot of these properties we manage for early successional habitat. So we're not doing a lot of hands-on maintenance on all the properties that we own. Now that's part of our management scheme. Passive management is a piece of that. We do things through a rotational cycle. So this year we might be touching a certain piece of property with fire or some kind of timber cut. And then we may not touch that same piece again for 10 or 20 years, depending on how it fits in that rotation. Hopefully that answers, I think that helps.
And I think it does. I think probably people on the committee are that's a question that floats around here a lot. A while ago, you said that it took about $500,000 a year to manage Halford Lake. Now explain the difference between the management of Halford Lake versus the management of some of these new acquisitions.
Well, there's a lot of maintenance to that area because it comes with a beach, it comes with a dock, it comes with a camping area. It's got several things that come there. And so, and then we're also on the water. We're managing fish structure underwater. We're putting bait fish. We're putting game fish in there. We have a staff that is just right there on Lake Halford that's taking care of all those assets that are associated with that lake right there.
Okay, thank you for that. And now, you and I had a conversation back in December that you guys, TWRA, they're responsible for maintaining docks. You're responsible for maintaining several pieces of infrastructure that y'all don't necessarily get any, like for instance, kayakers. They'll go put in something and then they flip over. Then your guys are having to go out and retrieve them, help them, save them. But you get no benefit financially from those folks. Is that fair?
That's fair. Yes, sir, Chairman.
What about the shooting sports and those gun ranges? Do you have to have a hunting license or do you have to have a permit or any type, or can you just go out there and use that because you're a resident of Tennessee?
So that's all over the board. So we do have some manned ranges that you pay a fee to go into. Some of the unmanned ranges, like on a WMA, your hunting license gets you in there to be able to use that.
Okay, now here comes the shock. I don't think it's fair for you guys to have to man or provide services for people who are not paying a certain fee. So those people who are using kayaks and we're using your docks, they should be paid, whether it's tourism, those dollars should be coming back to you guys. And I think it's imperative. I mean, I'm supportive of some of those funds coming back to you guys to help alleviate the shortfall. A while ago, you mentioned $23.5 million from the real estate transfer tax. You say you need 18.5. Could we take that 18.5 from the real estate transfer tax and y'all use the existing or the remaining $5 million to go to the acquisition fund? Would that be a suitable fix for you guys? I know it would take the money that you're buying property up with, but would that be a suitable fix?
We're pretty much using all those funds, Chairman. And so that would
Well, there'd be $5 million left though, between the 23 and the 18.5.
So part of that goes to maintenance too. We typically spend around $16 million in maintenance. Y'all, that freed that up several years ago. And so that money goes to maintenance of those WMAs as well. right now we're going to be trying to spend it down on the law enforcement, which we haven't had before.
Right.
But not all that money was going for land. Some of that money was actually going for maintenance and WMAs across the state.
And my last point here, no, I got one more point after this one, I think. A few years ago, we were talking about the duck blinds, and you and I have had this conversation, just to bring it back up again. There were several of us who were like, guys, this is going to be a reoccurring expense. This is going to be a reoccurring expense. We don't know what the economic impact is because there's not an economic impact study done, but we do know that there's a reoccurring expense every year. And I would encourage the commission, before they make decisions going forward that's going to create a reoccurring expense, to make sure we have real hard numbers to find out where we are and how much it's going to impact the economy, so we can know if it's a benefit or if it's a cost. And I believe, we've had our differences. We've had our different opinions on that. I believe there's some good from the duck blind drawings and how that thing is changed. But my last question is the management of deer in Tennessee, especially north of I-40. We're seeing huge amounts of deer hitting cars, getting in fields. I mean, we're seeing farmers lose whole loads of grain because of the deer manure in the grain. What can we do, and what can we do as an agency and as a state to help alleviate some of those stresses?
So we've got a working group. We had one meeting so far, and so we're meeting with partners on that. We see that as an issue as well. We hear it from our partners. And so we had a meeting in November, I believe it was, at Farm Bureau headquarters. We met with Tennessee Department of Agriculture, Soybean Association, us. I think there was a few other folks there. I forget what other folks were there at this time, but we're getting ready to have a follow-up meeting, and we're trying to collectively get our heads together to try to see. I mean, there's a couple of different thought processes out there. I mean, obviously, if there was some funds generated to be able to help with processing,
Sure.
I think that would be a good measure, because that's the needle. We know that average hunter is shooting 1.8 deer. We need folks shooting more deer. We think that would be the best measure if there was something that could ever be stood up to help fund processing, especially like for the Hunters for the Hungry program. That's a good example. Most people would shoot more deer if somebody was taking care of the processing fee and distributing that meat out.
I believe Arkansas has a program similar to that, but I know you guys add another 100,000 to the Hunters for the Hungry, or at least trying to. Appreciate your effort. The deer problem is not because of TWRA. That's just the way nature works. But thank you for being responsive whenever we call and the conversations we get to have. And I've spoke with Blair earlier. I'd like to just give her congratulations to her and her husband, since she showed up this year. Her and her husband, they're great, and congratulations on going forward. Thank y'all.
Thank you. Next on the list, Representative Chisholm. You're recognized.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Well, first, let me give you all a huge shout out for all you all's work in helping us host the National Sportsman Summit in Memphis, which was the largest one in the organization's history. So I want to thank you all for making Tennessee look good. So, but I do have a question. I want to follow with a question. Are you all focused on acquiring any new properties, or are you all more focused on deferred maintenance at this point?
So deferred maintenance, sir, we're trying to pretty much, again, we heard from this body loud and clear, unless there's some really key piece of property that comes available, we're not really acquiring anything other than what we've got to close out.
Okay, thank you. I just wanted to hear that on record. All right.
Yes, sir.
All right, thank you. Next on the list, Chairman Williams. Chairman Williams, you're recognized.
Thank you, Director, for being here today. I just wanted to follow up on a discussion about commercial paddlecraft, kayaks, and things. As you well know, I spend an inordinate amount of time on the Caney Fork River. We passed a bill several years ago to allow you guys to regulate, or at least those commercial watercraft, to help with generating revenue for the very purpose of to help better maintain those put-ins and where people are getting out. My question is of course, the prior director and I had many conversations about that. When was the last time we looked at that? Have we looked at what that revenue might generate? You know, if my good friend from Davidson County decides to come down to Center Hill and put in a commercial paddlecraft, and he's paying $129 for 4 hours on the Caney to go from the dam to Betty's Island, if you're paying that and TWRA is charging $10 for maintenance, it seems to me, based upon just that one waterway, and I'm assuming all the waterways across the state are that way, would it not generate enough revenue to help close the gap so that your department could maintain its independency from general fund revenues?
Yes, sir, Chairman. And going back to Chairman Grills and you both, just to let you all know, we hear you loud and clear. We want to generate some revenue from this. We think that it is not fair to our anglers and our recreational boaters because they're using those access areas. They're paying a boat registration fee. If they launch their boat at one of those access areas, they're having to pay. And we would like to see the paddlecraft folks do that as well. And just being transparent with you, our agency had not done a good job tracking and getting the data from the commercial paddlecraft folks. And so we did a survey. We went out last year and did that. That is something that we want to go back to our commission and take up and do that probably next year. We are working with the Paddlecraft Association. Blair's been working with them. And so we would like to come to some type of a consensus that's good for paddlecraft folks as well as good for the agency to be able to generate some revenue from that.
Did the statutory change or the rules allow you to do it per put in, or was it per craft?
That is a good question. Blair, do you recall? I'm going to have to get back to you on that, Mr. Chairman. I cannot tell you if it's per craft or.
Yeah. Obviously, if you did it per put in or whatever the technical term for that is, if you did it per that, then the rate could be lower and less impactful to the commercial operator. But it's just a number that they're going to pass on to a lot of these folks. And I would argue that over half of them are not Tennessee residents anyways. And so I think it's really important that we kind of flesh this out, walk it through, figure out what's going on as it relates to that, because it's really the only place where we're not generating revenue for your department and for the citizens of the state. So thank you very much.
Thank you, sir.
All right, thank you. Next on the list, Chairman Hale. Chairman Hale, you're recognized.
Thank you, Chairman. Couple of questions. Appreciate y'all being here today. We had some conversation in my office last year, and I just wanted to follow up on a couple of things. I asked yesterday to one of the other departments, and so they said it would be a question for y'all. We talked about this selling land. I know for a fact there's a piece of land and there's others, and I know you have parameters and all of this, but have y'all looked at pieces of land that could be sold that would be one-time money that would come back in, but yet that would put that piece of property back on tax rolls for these counties? The one that I know of, particularly in Cannon County, fronted by two roads, then it has property. It's not even connected to woods, to stream or anything, and sitting there, but it's property that's owned by y'all. So can you, I mean, have y'all just took across the state and looked and said, we could do this, we could sell this? Have y'all looked at that?
I don't know that we've done it to that depth. Now, there are pieces that come up from time to time that people request. We have developers a lot of times that will request a piece like that would have road frontage that will come back. And what we do, we've got a process that we go through. We've got a real estate property manager. That property manager will meet with the field staff and see what that use of that property would be. Then we also have a process that we have to go through and look at. If it's got a federal nexus to it, a lot of the properties that we buy, and we've used federal match dollars, and we would have to pay that federal money back. So we will evaluate it based on what's the use of it, what's the location of it in proximity to the rest of our areas. Is it something that we might ever use in the future for, say, a work base or a shop? Sure. Does it have a federal nexus to it? And is it worth, at that point, liquidating that property? There's a no net loss piece that's on the books, too, that if we get rid of that piece, we have to purchase another piece somewhere. So that's how we go through that evaluation process.
Okay. All right. Thank you. And I know we've had several officers in the last couple of years to retire. How are we as far as getting those positions filled, and where are we at with that?
We are still down. That's a good question. And that hurts us getting things done out in the communities. But we We held 20 vacancies. If you remember, as a cost saving measure, we did that back last year, and then you all were kind enough to free up the wetlands money. And so fast forward, we went back and tried to hire 20 this year. It's hard, believe it or not, to find what we consider a good candidate that we want to put out in your communities. After we went through that process, we ended up hiring 10. But because of retirements and attrition, we're still sitting on about 20 vacancies right now. We'll be getting ready to hire another class. We've got one that's about to come out of Toledo now, and then they'll finish through our school. And then this summer, we'll try to go back in and hire another class to fill some of those vacancies.
Okay. And then lastly, I heard you mention about the sales tax of hunting and fishing. We had that conversation last year. And of course, Department of Revenue kind of kicked and fussed, wanting to have to separate that out and all of that. But I just think there's a way there that we can get either through that or through Representative Marsh's bill to be able to get some revenue there that these people are already paying some taxes and things. So appreciate the effort on that and look forward to seeing that moving forward. Thank you. Thank you, Chairman.
Thank you. Members, I have no one else on the list, so TWRA, thank you all for being here. Director Maxidon, thank you for your presentation and for answering the questions. All right. Perfect timing for Commissioner Bryson and his staff. We will ask them to make their way to the front. And commissioners, you get settled in. Just a reminder that we do control the microphones up here. So if you'll just wait for the red light to come on, you'll be ready to begin your presentation. Thank you for being here. And if you will begin with introductions, when you're ready, you may begin.
Great. Thank you, Mr. Chairman, members of the committee. It's a pleasure to be here to talk to you about our budget today. I'm Jim Bryson, Commissioner of Finance and Administration. I have with me Eugene Newbert, who is Deputy Commissioner. I have on the other side of Eugene, Kristen Darby, who is our State Chief Information Officer. And next to me is Jennifer Brinkman, who is the Director of the Office of Criminal Justice Programs. We would like to make a brief presentation and then be available for whatever questions that you may have. At this time, I'll turn it over to Eugene Newbert, Deputy Commissioner, to begin that presentation.
Good morning, Mr. Chairman, members. Thank you for the opportunity to present today. I'll provide, as Commissioner said, just a brief overview of the budget request before turning it over to Jennifer and Kristen, who will discuss the cost increases. Our total budget for F&A amounts to $719.8 million. About $38.7 million of that comes from state funds. The budget includes $4.8 million in reductions and about $10 million in cost increases. Additionally, we'll talk about cost increases that are in miscellaneous appropriations that F&A will administer. There's about $147 million, primarily non-recurring, that STS will oversee. And then there's $80 million from the governor's office in miscellaneous appropriations that the Office of Criminal Justice will oversee. I'd also like to highlight that our position count in FY27 shows a reduction of 9 positions. The budget reflects our continuous effort to manage resources efficiently while addressing essential needs. We believe this proposed budget will enable us to achieve our objectives and support the state and state government effectively. And with that, I'm going to turn it over to Jennifer to talk about her portion.
Good morning. Thank you for the time here. OCJP serves as a state central administrator for critical federal and state criminal justice funding, strategically investing in programs that reduce violent crime, strengthen victim services, and support evidence-based prevention initiatives across Tennessee. This year, the governor has included 2 targeted investments that address urgent public safety priorities. First, we have the $1.7 million in recurring funding to combat human trafficking. Human trafficking continues to impact vulnerable Tennesseans in both urban and rural communities. These funds will strengthen specialized victim services, enhance multidisciplinary task force coordination, support trauma-informed care, and improve investigative and prosecutorial capacity. Recurring funding ensures stability for service providers and law enforcement partners who are working every day to identify victims, hold offenders accountable, and break cycles of exploitation. Second, Governor Lee included $80 million in non-recurring funding for crime intervention and prevention efforts in Memphis. This strategic investment will support evidence-based programs, including community-based prevention initiatives, enhanced law enforcement coordination, and partnerships designed to address the root causes of violent crime. Previous funding for Memphis has reduced crime in that city, and this funding is intended to pivot from intervention to stabilization of these successes in Memphis. This funding represents a focused effort to produce measurable reductions in crime while strengthening trust and collaboration between communities and the justice system. With the support of the General Assembly and Governor Lee, we will be able to continue to build on OCJP's ongoing work, administering hundreds of grants statewide that support domestic violence shelters, sexual assault programs, drug task forces, and data-driven policing strategies. Behind every grant is a Tennessean served, a trafficking survivor receiving safe housing, a young person diverted from violence, or a family finding stability after crisis. Thank you. Kristen, I'll turn it over to you.
So good morning. I'm Kristen Darby, Chief Information Officer of Strategic Technology Solutions, and thank you for the opportunity to be here today. The STS FY 26-27 budget recommended increases total $144 million of non-reoccurring and $5.2 million of reoccurring for a total of $149.2 million. These investments are concentrated in three transformative areas. The first being AI enablement at $50 million, ERP modernization, $70 million, which is also known as the Edison system across the state, and North Data Center relocation phase 2 at $20 million. Importantly, this budget does not include any new positions, and reoccurring growth is limited to cloud consumption, endpoint security, and multi-state I6 cybersecurity membership, which is a new requirement for cybersecurity grant eligibility. This is a modernization year for STS, not an expansion year. In the area of reoccurring increases, which total $5.2 million, these are primarily focused on cloud consumption, cybersecurity, and support for our expanding AV usage across the state. In the area of reductions, we have proposed $4.7 million of base adjustments, including contractor reductions and adjustments to project approaches. This demonstrates STS's commitment to continuous modernization while realizing efficiencies through technology. This year's STS budget concentrates dollars in infrastructure, limits reoccurring growth, avoids future capital spikes, continues utilization of strong cybersecurity tools, addresses ADA accessibility, and modernizes 20-year-old enterprise systems. It's a strategic pivot year, and we welcome your questions.
All right, thank you very much. Thank you for your presentation. We do have several folks on the list, and we're going to begin with Vice Chairman Gillespie. Vice Chairman Gillespie, you're recognized.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Commissioner Bryson and team, thank you so much for being here. I actually have a meeting with you all this afternoon, and I'll probably go over this in a bit more detail. But shifting back to the grants for Memphis, Downtown Public Safety Grant, and the other related grants, what type of funding? I see that there are 5 positions here that will oversee or have overseen the program. Did the Office of Criminal Justice Programming retain any funding from the Downtown Public Safety Grant to pay for that those positions? And then I've got some follow-ups as well.
Not for the Downtown Public Safety Grant.
Okay, so sorry, Mr. Chairman.
You're recognized. Go right ahead.
Thank you. So where is that funding coming from for those positions, if I may ask?
So the Violent Crime Intervention Fund.
directly from those?
Yes.
Okay, thank you. And then secondly, with will y'all be administering the $80 million in grant pools for all the Memphis-related initiatives? And if so, how much does the cost of doing business managing those grants, what do y'all foresee that being?
I'll try to answer that real quickly. I'm not exactly sure but we'll get back to you for anything we can't answer related to that. So we are all of the $50 million goes to the city of Memphis and goes to the city. The other two grants are $15 million that will be distributed to government and nonprofits according to some of the language that's actually in the budget book will be kind of guiding language for that. And so we'll move forward on that. OCJP will be administering that with internal resources, correct?
Yes, what the plan is to take between 1% and 2% of the violent crime funding. So not all of the funding, but the 15 million would be like 1% for staffing.
Okay, Mr. Chairman.
Yes, sir, you're recognized.
Thank you. Okay, so that's helpful. So I guess what I'm getting at is the city will not be on the hook for those are not just pass-through dollars. Y'all are going to be actually administering the program from the state level and not passing those costs to the locals.
That is correct.
Okay. Thank you so much. And thank you again for doing this. And it is desperately needed, as I know y'all know and this committee knows. And we have to continue the momentum of the last year in Memphis. And we got to stay ahead of it. And I think this will do just that.
All right, thank you. Next on the list, Chairman Halsey. Chairman Halsey, you recognize.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, and thank you for being here. I haven't got it down like my friend Chairman Gillespie does. He says Memphis, and I cannot get that right. But my questions revolve around some of what he talked about. You plan 80 million on grants for Memphis and 15 million of them for violent crime deterrence grants and 15 million for work-centered training grants. Can you did mention some of those, but can you give more details or any more details on both of those grants and what are the plans for them and what are the parameters for receiving them? And will there be a reporting requirement for the folks that get them?
Thank you, Chairman. So these are going to be direct grants that are given to government and nonprofits in the city that are serving the city of Memphis. I don't have it in front of me, but the budget document itself had the outlines for what services that will be actually expected in for each of those grants. And so that will end up being the guiding language. Obviously, this still has to go through the General Assembly. And so all of the parameters and how that's all going to be managed has not all been worked out, but you can look at the budget language and in the budget document, the budget book, and understand exactly what those grants are going to be used for.
Okay,
Chairman
thank you. Last year, I think there was 175 million invested last year. What outcomes are you seeing for that and how much has been paid out of that total?
In terms of how much has been paid out, the 100 million for the downtown public safety grant is 100% out the door and in the hands of the subrecipients. The 75 million, which was the zip code, is the same, that the 75 million is out the door and in the hands of the subrecipients.
Thank you.
Thank you, Chairman Halsey. Next on my list is Deputy Speaker Zachary.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Ms. Darby, a couple of questions for you. Regarding Edison, you talked about that briefly, the $70 million non-recurring, and I think we even appropriated $5 million non-recurring for planning. Can you just give us an update overall where we are in the process and what you anticipate the completion date will be for Edison? You're good.
Yes, happy to do that. So the initial appropriation was to launch the ERP discovery process and requirements phase. And we have completed requirements. We have sign off across state agencies related to those. And those requirements are now being used to draft the RFP. That is expected to go out over the summer. And the before the end of calendar year 26, we do expect to have the first phase completed, which would be the selection of a platform. We do anticipate a secondary competitive bid process around hiring a system integrator or partners to help with the implementation. We're doing that as a secondary process because we want to make sure we're limiting that pool to experts in the platform that we select. From a timeline perspective, we've actually done some deep research on this to understand how can we adopt best practices across state government and public sector. The average timeline for public sector implementations of a ERP platform this size, and ERP stands for Enterprise Resource Planning. So this is a system that focuses on finance, HR, and procurement activities. That particular system is typically a 5 to 6 year implementation timeframe for public sector. In the private sector, it's 3 to 4 years for a like-sized organization. So we have been partnering with CPO to better examine how do we adopt some of those best practices to consolidate that timeline as low as possible to make it a much more competitive implementation around a private sector timeline. So I don't have an exact date yet, but that will lead us into the procurement phase and design.
Thank you. You may not have had an exact date, but that was a detailed explanation. So thank you.
Yes.
And then one question, and we could probably go down a long rabbit hole. So forgive me if I take us in a weird direction regarding the $50 million for the AI enterprise solution. What is the ultimate goal of the $50 million? Because I know AI is such a broad topic. I mean, you know, AI is a productivity multiplier. AI is a solution to help alleviate workload for certain AI implementation within Edison. What will that look like with chatbots? And there's so many different roads to go down, but can you just provide, like, what are the ultimate goals? And what do you see the implementation? And is that implementation throughout state government? I'd just like a better understanding.
Yes. So I appreciate that question. It is a focused effort around establishing a strong foundation for Tennessee to be able to serve us in the future. We see AI continuing to grow. We all know from all the media that we see every day that it's changing at a very rapid pace, and it's hard to know where that's going to be. And so what we understand is a couple guiding principles. One, we need a strong governance structure that has guardrails for Tennessee to reduce risk and allow us to make better decisions around the types of technology that are implemented and how they're applied across state government. It allows us to put controls in place. It is building a base infrastructure that has full auditability, that any AI tools that we acquire for the state will run through it. It's modernizing our data in strong cybersecurity. So the idea is every tool we use across the state will become AI-enabled software, et cetera. What we don't want is a lack of centralized governance around AI and how it's used. And so this is really bringing in that centralized governance structure and then giving us funding to be able to start to scale and mobilize many of the use cases around the state that are focused on delivering better citizen experiences and also driving efficiency across state government. Commissioner?
I was just saying, if I could just build on that for a second, one of the things, the foundation and the governance that she mentioned is absolutely, critical. What I have learned in this is that there will be two channels for AI coming in. There's going to be AI that we will build and implement that we will have an innovations lab that are helping us with that. That is a foundational structure we have to build that we don't have today. Well, we do today. We didn't have it a year ago. The other piece, every piece of software will be offering AI components to us every time, even those existing software and any new software, because that is what they will all do. We have to have a way in our system to be able to evaluate it and be able to understand if it's going to be helpful for us, both from a usage perspective and a security perspective, before we can enter into that. And that's our responsibility. So we have to build those governance models on both of those channels to be able to move forward with AI, regardless of how it comes to us.
And one more, if I may, Mr. Chairman. So, Ms. Darby, and again, forgive me for continuing to go down the road, but is this a first step and a foundation to then help us take the step where state employees have access to whether it's our own LLM or our own autopilot, co-pilot, whatever term you want to use, for us to be able to, as state employees, to access that? And what does that integration look like with the 50 million? How far are we away from that integration where, again, we could, as a state, our employees can begin to access that?
Yes. So I'm happy to tell you that we have many employees across state government that are accessing AI tools today in secure GovCloud deployments. So we have those are focused on individual productivity and prompting, but we have roughly 50, I'm trying to remember the statistic from last week. I think it was 5,264 employees have been trained. And we have enablers across 2 different products right now in the executive branch, and some of that is expanding to other parts of government. So we are starting to utilize these tools today. This particular investment will allow us to put better guardrails around Tennessee. And what the Tennessee AI Council and the steering committee start to determine are governance practices that need to be in place to enforce safe and responsible use of AI. We don't have the ability to funnel or filter how things flow in commercial products. And so this is building that infrastructure. So as this scales at a very rapid pace, we have the ability to apply Tennessee standards to it before it is utilized by those in state government or potentially our citizens in the future if we were to offer a product commercially or publicly.
And then last question, Mr. Chairman, just quickly then shifting to a voice perspective, have we begun to implement from a contact center perspective, utilizing agentic AI and how we interface with the people of Tennessee?
So we have implemented generative AI tools within a contact center, not agentic. And that is one of the initial use cases we have that's gone through the steering committee. It's still in early stages. They just reported out to us at the last meeting, and I think we were roughly 40 days in, but they were seeing productivity gains close to 40% and customer satisfaction increases to complement that.
Very good. Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Thank you.
All right, thank you. Next on the list, Chairman Hawk. Chairman Hawk, you're recognized.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Commissioner Bryson and your team, thank you very much. Forgive me, I was in the hallway and we may have already discussed, but justice involved youth. If we could talk about, there's 2 miscellaneous appropriations for $10 million each for investments in infrastructure in East and West Tennessee. Can you give us some details on that funding, locations, what we're talking about with those 2 funding, non-recurring funding mechanisms?
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Chairman. Thank you, Chairman Hawk. This is for juvenile detention centers, one in East Tennessee and one in West Tennessee. I'm a little bit fuzzy on all the details, but I'd be glad to get that to you if that's something that you're interested in receiving.
Okay, and thank you. And to follow up on that, discuss how we're addressing, I think I know the answer to this, but discuss how we're just addressing this in Middle Tennessee with facilities of that nature, if you could.
We'll have to get back to you on that.
Okay, thank you. Thank you, Commissioner. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
All right, thank you. Next on the list, Chairman Williams.
Thank you, Commissioner. This morning we had another department here, TDEC, and I had some questions for them regarding ARPA funds. And of course, your department is responsible for distributing those funds as it relates to water and wastewater treatment facilities across the state. Just wanted to kind of get a 30,000 foot view of your perspective on it to make sure that we're communicating well. It'd be your department that's reallocating dollars from those projects that were there. When we had a discussion with them back in the fall, there was a discussion about, all these projects are doing well. Everybody's moving forward. We're not concerned about deadlines. And then today we heard that, 12 or 15 of those projects have been pulled from them and those monies are being reallocated. tell me a little bit about your relationship with TDEC and how you help distribute those dollars to make sure that all these dollars that we have acquired for these purposes are getting spent.
I'm going to thank you, Mr. Chairman. I'm going to let Eugene Newbert. He is kind of our point man on this. Let me say just on a high level, we are monitoring this very closely, and we're sending FSAG reports now on a monthly basis instead of quarterly, what we used to do, because as we're getting closer, we're having to watch this much more closely. And I will tell you that we believe that we're in a place where projects are going to be finished, and if they are not, we're going to have a place to put those dollars that we will be able. So we don't plan on losing any of those dollars. I'll turn it over to Eugene to explain further.
Yeah, so I'll start, and Representative, if I don't fully answer, you have some follow-up, happy to do that. We're meeting quarterly with some of our high-risk agencies. TDEC would be one, of Department of Health, our STREAM group that is doing state buildings for health, DDA, ECD with the infrastructure for broadband. We're meeting quarterly looking at where they are on status, understanding how they are working with their subrecipients, their grantees to ensure projects come to completion in time for us to utilize these dollars. Most projects, there are a few that will move into or hang over into the fourth quarter of 2026. Most projects, their grant contracts with subrecipients in sometime over the summer or no later than September. I think TDEC has set all of its contracts to end September 30th to ensure that projects are completed and they then have time to receive and process invoices before that December 31 timeframe. We're prepared in F&A to ramp up as needed to ensure that there's no bottleneck in invoice processing, to provide additional administrative support if that is necessary, to ensure that we can get through that invoice and documentation review to make sure that we meet that deadline. As Commissioner mentioned, if there are funds that are not expended, there are other eligibility categories within the ARPA. There's the general revenue loss category that we have the ability to leverage just general ongoing state operating expenses that we could apply dollars to that would, in changing the color of the money, if you would, create some additional non-recurring state dollars that could either be used, if had be, to help finish some of those projects, or if it's just construction projects that come in under budget, it would allow us to ensure that we leverage those ARPA dollars, and then it just creates some general state savings that could be dealt with in, I guess, next year's budget.
Yeah, I think it obviously did, based upon their reporting this morning and with your department's paying out, about 60% of that money is still yet to be deployed. And, if you meet quarterly, you got 2 more times to meet before we're in dire jeopardy of spending that money. And so I just want to make sure that if we do have to be nimble and do that we have the ability to do that. It's my understanding that money does have to be in the grantee's hands on or before that date. No money can transfer after the deadline. Is that correct?
That's correct, with the exception of administrative support. So our final reporting to U.S. Treasury will be April of 27. The only dollars post December 31 that can be spent is the assistance of pulling all the paperwork and doing the reporting. So unlike a typical federal grant where you can provide services up to the very end of the period and then you have 90 to 120 days to pay out, these funds, you're right, for the project work has to be spent by December 31, 2026.
Yeah, well, when we originally came out with the grants list, who was getting funded what, that was more than 75%. That time's now 75% gone. And so it is a little bit concerning not to see the money going out. I recognize that each individual project has a completely different construction schedule, design time, and timeline. And so I'm not as concerned as I was in the fall, but I'm still concerned it's going to be very difficult to spend this money. I'm happy to know that you guys aren't as concerned as I am. Thank you.
Thank you.
All right, thank you. Next on the list, Representative Miller. He stepped out. Let's go with Leader Camper. Oh, right there's, you changed seats on me. Sorry about that.
I did.
Representative Miller, you
Thank
are
you.
recognized,
Thank you,
sir.
Mr. Chairman, and good morning. Going back to the $80 million, I would say, investment, and my colleagues have really asked the questions that I wanted to, but just for further clarifications, $30 million of the 80 million will be appropriated to nonprofit organizations. Did I understand that correctly?
It'll go to nonprofits and government entities that apply for the grant funds under the guidelines that are outlined in the budget.
And the 50 million
goes to the city of Memphis.
To the city of Memphis to make the decisions of how those dollars will be appropriated.
That's correct, because this is a follow-up. This is from the money that the General Assembly appropriated last year. So it's going to be under similar conditions.
And I think the question was asked, will there be a reporting of the investments of these dollars to see if in fact they have been effective in the results that we're trying to obtain?
I believe
the
that
goals.
I believe that there's a requirement of a report after the grant has been spent, but that's something that we'll have to work through.
You say you would have to work through it. In other words, what are you looking for as
Well,
goals?
it would be my preference that there is some kind of reporting system, but I don't know if that's been outlined in the proposal yet.
Okay. Thank you. Mr. Chairman, another question. Going back to, I guess, the benefits and the F&A taxes, refund taxes, do your department, I think monthly revenue reporting, you do report monthly or revenues. Did you have anything to do with approving those refund dollars, or was it basically left up to the Department of Revenue to make the decision of who received the money, when they received the money, and what amount?
I'm not sure.
I'm not sure which refund you're referring to.
Excise, franchise taxes,
That would be Department of Revenue. Department of Revenue would manage that.
Would manage that. So you have nothing to do with that from standpoint of approval or disapproval, or it doesn't come across your desk at all?
Just simply processing the payments. Once revenue makes the decisions and enters them into the Edison system, F&A writes the checks, but revenue is the one that makes the decisions and tells us how much to whom.
So once you write the checks, you know exactly who you're writing the checks to. So you have a list of that and the amount and to the various companies. You have that list.
We have the list of every payment we make in state government.
Okay, thank you.
All right, thank you. Next on the list, Leader Camper. You recognize me.
Take two. Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Thank you, Commissioner and team. Really appreciate you all. Can we go to what page is this? Victim Services on the Human Trafficking. Who was talking? Yeah, hey. Tennessee's been a leader when it came to trying to get in front of this human trafficking problem. We did a task force that looked at the impact it was having on our state. We passed a lot of great legislation. So we've really done a great job when it comes to that. I'm curious on the monies that's now being appropriated. Some of the findings when we did the study was that we needed to train law enforcement. And I know we spend money making sure that they can identify, know what to do, and that was hugely successful. But there was also monies appropriated, and I'm curious if we're still doing this. Maybe we're doing it with this Anti-Human Trafficking Coalition for the victims coming out of these traffic situations. And so can you talk a little bit about that program, how well it's going? Is this the organization that's getting the money for that? Can you give us an update on that?
Yes. So the Tennessee Counter Trafficking, I think it's called Coalition there, but it's the Alliance is what they call themselves now. I think they've changed that.
Okay.
But they coordinate with TBI and DCS and every state agency almost, and we have this quarterly task force meeting. And in this quarterly task force meeting, we talk about where we're at on that. Where are the needs? What can we do? There is a subgroup of the victim services agencies that gets together. My staff sit on that. There are some others that sit on that. And so we do have both state and federal funding. The VOCA funds also support human trafficking victim services that are providing services to those agencies to assist those victims.
You recognize
Thank you,
Leader
Mr.
Cameron.
Chairman. Is there any level of, I don't want to say tracking, but way of determining how successful these programs are in with their transition, getting back into, a normal state of mind, getting back into the community, having a, successful future, becoming, taxpaying great citizens to the state of Tennessee? Is there any reporting on that we could look at on how well we're actually doing to that end?
Yes, but I don't know that it's that longitudinal yet because we just started doing that work. But yes, we get quarterly reports, we get annual reports, so we are getting updates.
Yeah.
But the long term at this point, we don't have that.
Okay, thank you. Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I appreciate it. Appreciate all the hard work you guys are doing to that end.
All right, thank you. Next on the list, Representative Shaw. You recognize.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Thank you all for being here. I want to just kind of back up. Deputy Speaker was asking some questions I was just interested in. What do you envision over the next 5 years of AI? How many state jobs do you think AI will eliminate over the next 5 years? Anybody want to shoot for that?
Well, I will tell you, let me just kind of frame it this way. I don't know the answer to that. I will tell you that what we are looking at is as jobs come open, as vacancies come open, we are looking at in our department just if a job is open, is that something that we need to refill? Or is that something that we don't need to refill? AI is a part of that conversation. We have about 30% of our workforce that's going to be that is eligible to retire in the next 5 years. So I would expect within those positions, those people, once they retire, we may look at their job and see, is that something that we want to fill or not? But I don't know of any plans or understanding that any state employees will be displaced because of it at this point.
You don't think that maybe if AI can do it cheaper, if you will, for less dollars, you don't think we will replace the human being?
Well, it's unknown at this point. All I can really say is that there are no plans or no understanding of particular areas within state government that will be reduced or eliminated because of it that I'm aware of.
Well, I would ask you if you thought they'd ever replace senators and representatives, but I won't.
Just senators, you'd never be able to replace the representatives.
Well done. Representative Sparks, you're recognized.
Commissioner, I appreciate your heart. I know you got a heart for Tennesseans. I found a quote of yours that says, "There's a real orphan crisis. There's not enough leaders in the country." We passed a bill yesterday that I really wasn't comfortable with. It's expanding government. It's, and I get a little worried where I see the state's debt, I see the national debt, and I see the breakdown of the family. It seems like lack of accountability. I see our jails are full, see the juvenile crisis, see the violence. I see what's going on in Memphis, which is unsustainable to keep spending money on this. But going back on your quote, there's a real orphan crisis. There's not enough leaders in the country. Can you expand on that a little bit and why that matters to you?
I can. I think that's several years old. I think that was from when I was, I founded a school in Haiti. And so that was referring to the situation in Haiti at the time.
Yes, sir. For good chairman, as I get a little older, I got grandbabies. I really worry about the grandbabies. And I think when you have grandkids, I think everyone on this committee, your mind kind of looks at life a little differently. You start putting away materialistic, items, and you don't really think about that. You think about their future, and I worry about their future, whether it's a backlog of, TDOT projects, some say 38, some say 58, some say 75, billion dollars. I don't know what the figure is, but when we look at trying to do more with less, where do you see, whether it's AI, whether it's leverage in think tanks, what advice would you give us? Because you've got a great career. You got a wealth of information, very wise fella. Got an MBA from Vanderbilt in '85 when I graduated high school. But it just seems like we're on a path of unsustainability. And I don't think you have to have an MBA from Vanderbilt in economics to understand that. But what advice would you give some of us and younger leaders coming up, whether it's my county commission that can't afford to build schools, we got to build a $400 million jail. Our schools are busting at the seams. What advice would you give us, whether it's DOGE or whether it's other ways of leveraging think tanks or other groups in Tennessee?
Representative Sparks, you've given me a broad canvas to paint on.
I know.
When I came into this position, I became very proud of how Tennessee does its budget. We have a history of conservative budgeting, and where that really points out is the leadership of the administrations, not just this one, but previous administrations, and the leadership in the General Assembly have always taken a tack that we're going to, the funding board is going to set our growth percentages, and then we're going to stay at or below that in our revenue projections. And we're always going to only spend the recurring money we have and not spend it on projects. And then when we had the COVID crisis, this body, as well as the administration, decided to invest the money instead of just spending it all on new programs. And that's what sets Tennessee apart as a state, is the willingness to invest. Chairman Williams was kind of brought up some of the consequences of that, because it's harder to make those investments, but we're doing it and we're making it work because it was the right thing to do. And so I think that Tennessee has a tremendous history of being careful, conservative, and thoughtful with its budget. And that comes from this body, and previous administrations. I'm just not talking about this one. And I think we've done a great job with that. This administration and you all have also looked at how do we maintain the size of government, either the way it is or smaller. I think Deputy Commissioner Newbert mentioned that we've eliminated 9 positions in F&A. It's only 9, but you start doing that across government, and you begin to see some real change. Those positions weren't filled positions, they were vacant positions, which goes back to what I was mentioning with Representative Shaw. I think we look for those opportunities to take advantage of the situation that we're in, while we take care of people, including our citizens and our employees, and do it to the best job we can, but do it conservatively and carefully and thoughtfully. And I think we do a pretty good job of that. I appreciate the question.
Yes, sir.
It's really, there's a lot to it, but it does give me an opportunity to say how proud I am of the way Tennessee operates its fiscal ability. And that's why we have been a AAA state for a very long time.
Yes, sir. Thank you, sir.
All right, I have no one else on the list. But before we do break for lunch, my predecessor just walked into the room, and anytime I can embarrass him, I'm certainly going to do that. So former state representative and former budget sub chair, Mike Harrison is in the back. Mike, stand up. Chairman Hawk, you're recognized.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. And a friend of mine, too, I watched a statue ceremony for Pat Riley, the old LA Lakers coach. Pat Riley had a statue made of him and dedicated this week, and many of his former players showed up. And the only one that wore a tie was James Worthy. I think it's worth noting that former Representative Harrison does not have a tie on right now. So I think there's a kangaroo court that's going to fine you about $20 for not having that tie on. So. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
All right. Thank you. So without objection, we will now go back into session. And that does conclude the budget hearings for this morning. So we will return at 1 p.m. to continue the remainder of the budget hearings for today. So we will break for lunch from 12 to 1. Without objection, we will stand in recess.